please welcome the CEO of PlayAsia, Obake PAM. Hello, Pam. Hello. How are you doing?
Good. I am Pam, CEO of PlayAsia. I'm doing good.
Yay! Well, we do have the basics of the intro down, and I have to say, whenever I create the the announcement posts for my guests, that I always look to their Twitter profile, their YouTube profile, their Twitch profile for the basics of the branding to make sure that I announce them properly. And I had to do a bit of a double take on yours when I announced you, because it was like, okay, I'm about to put the word shit poster next to a brand name. And
Yeah.
I've had a couple folks who are with agencies. I don't know if I've ever actually had someone who represents a specific brand. And I have to say, like, I had to, like I said, just sort of triple check, make sure, okay, it does say that. She does have that, and I assume that if they're all right with her putting that in her Twitter bio, that I'm going to be okay here, because I did the initial coordination actually with your manager, and it was like, gosh, I really don't want to make them mad at me after they were kind enough to help set all this up, but it does seem to be okay. But it was very amusing to me that I got to put shit poster next to PlayAsia and be like, yes, this is okay.
Well, of course it's okay, because I'm the one in charge. You seem to have
Very
made a
true.
crucial misunderstanding, though. That is not a manager. That is an underling. I am the
Oh,
manager of
yes.
everyone.
My bad. That makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. But
I
yes,
am in charge.
but you definitely keep yourself busy. You had a stream just earlier today, which went for, I think, a little over 4 hours. So,
Yeah, that's actually short for me, believe it or not. I sometimes end up going for like 6, but four is kind of like the amount where I'm like, okay, I did good. I either go longer or I don't, but I'm satisfied at least at 4.
And that since you did know that you had this evening, that I'm glad you gave yourself at least a little bit of time to eat and recharge between. But we are here, and again, I'm so excited to have you. Also, it did just occur to me, I've seen this background before, and we had it up in the pre-show when we were setting everything up. And for some reason, I'm only just now noticing the rack of knives.
Yeah, it's my collection. What do you think?
It's a wonderful collection.
Thank you.
Are they used for cooking? Do you have
They're used for discipline. Yeah.
Yep. Okay, that makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. That all the PAM employees have to make sure that they stay in line, that they know who is in charge.
It works really well. Really, really well. No one ever acts up ever.
Yeah, that you don't even need to use them. I'm sure those knives are in sterling perfect condition because they just need to sit there and be visible. And that means that they are doing their job, that nobody's going to bother because they see them right there, all shiny.
They just have a very threatening aura. It helps make sure that no one ever steps a toe out of line.
Also, Rose Snail, thank you for the follow. Welcome on in. So your stream earlier, you were touring VCAT, the virtual convention. It's one that's actually been around for a while, but has more recently been making inroads for the English VTuber scene. I know that they actually had a whole bunch of folks that were doing official branded walkthroughs. I think yours was just because you legitimately enjoy it, but
mine was just for fun. I was not sponsored. Hashtag not sponsored. I just wanted to go look at cool stuff and correct it.
But it's definitely a fun, cool thing in that there have been a lot of IRL conventions going on. You've posted about attending several, and that I myself have been to a couple, and it's very nice that after not being able to do that for several years, when VTubing was really hitting its stride, and I've said multiple times that conventions not happening and the related reasons for that I point to as a not insignificant factor for the rise of VTubing, but it's certainly nice to be able to go to cons again.
Yeah, having the option, like VTubers kind of helped fill the void. It gave us kind of like a place for us weebs to hang out and have a cool community without having a physical community to go to. But now it's kind of nice because you get to even like meet that the digital community online. Like whether it's finding mutuals you've worked with or getting to go to panels and like sit there and cheer for one of your favorite VTubers on stage while you're in the audience, being like, wow, these people in the room also view this person. That's so cool.
Yeah, and it's nice that just one of the things I love about VTubing as a concept, and obviously I'm not a VTuber myself,
Mm.
but the fact that there is that sliding scale of privacy options that I
Yeah.
know folks that are VTubers that have gone to conventions, made no posts about it, no announcements about it, might let one or two very close friends know, but that
Mm.
others will post pictures, others will even post selfies,
Mm.
and that others just still will not go to conventions, period. And that
Mm.
there is no wrong way to do it, and people have those options,
Yeah.
and that people are able to approach VTubing and events and conventions in whatever method is most comfortable for them. But I think having
Mm.
virtual events like this is another added benefit that is just now
Mm.
we can have those types of things. And certainly for people who might not have the time or the funds to travel and get
Mm.
a
That's a big
hotel
one.
room and all that jazz, that I'm hoping that we're actually going to see not only more virtual events like this, but more robust ones as well. That there were
Yeah.
a couple cons that did full virtual in 2020, and for the
Yeah.
most part, it was just running the panel programming off of a Twitch channel. And hey,
Mhm.
for what they had at that point in time and the amount of planning, that simply seeing some of those conventions get that turnaround in a matter of 2-3
It
months
was really
was
cool seeing what they
genuinely
pulled off.
impressive. That
Yeah.
it takes a lot to organize any event of any size.
Mhm.
Conventions are usually full year projects, 7-8 month projects minimum, really. And to be able to
Mhm.
pivot really even within 2-3 months just takes a lot of work. And goodness knows
Mhm.
back end tech can be very difficult. And even if you have a simple setup times 30 odd panels and making sure that
Yeah.
none of them go wrong and all of them have equal sound leveling and that you have people
Mhm.
knowing when they need to be where, etc., etc. It takes a lot. So
Mhm.
I don't begrudge conventions that don't do it, but I'm hoping that
Mm.
through a combination of just technology becoming more viable and perhaps a bit of practice, that we'll start seeing more and more of that over time.
Yeah, I really like having like kind of what you see now sometimes hybrid events too. Because then there's like digital panels and digital concerts or events that people can still attend from home, whether it's like they can't travel because of money or health, they can still be
Mm,
involved in some way. But then
yeah.
having like an in-person one for the people who can go and want to enjoy it in person as well. Having both options is really nice.
Yeah, for sure. And that we already see that a lot, especially with the concerts that
Mm.
Hololive most prolifically had
Yeah.
their first in-person concert in LA, not part
Mhm.
of, but very deliberately aligned with the dates of Anime Expo. But they
That
also
was
had,
definitely on purpose,
yep.
yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Um, but that they had the virtual ticket, which they've had for all of their
Mhm.
Japanese concerts as well, because
Yeah.
folks stateside aren't going to be able to, in all likelihood, make that trip. So being able to do that, and then obviously was sort of shoe on the other foot situation this time, that for any fans in Japan that might have wanted to see the LA show, that they have that option, and
Mm.
it is very, very nice to have that.
For sure. It's also just more financially viable too. Like if whether it's traveling for the distance or time, or even if you live there and just can't afford it, like the online one, it was just nice to have a cheaper option. I do kind of wish for people who still couldn't afford that though, like maybe even after 6 months or something, it'd be like one day catch it free or something. But
Yeah,
not.
the virtual tickets
Mm,
as they stand now usually expire after like a month or something, and that
mm,
sometimes they will release a DVD, sometimes the videos go into the void. And I do agree that it would be nice, even if it isn't okay after 6 months, it's just free and everyone can watch that, to at least,
mm,
have DVDs or like, okay, you can buy the virtual ticket at any point in time in perpetuity, that I could buy today, maybe a Hololive concert from 2 years ago, and just, you know, similar to what you get for a movie. And if you get something like that, whether it be, off of iTunes or Amazon or whatnot, uh, that I hope we see more and more of that.
mm. For sure.
Also, yeah, sorry, folks. The video quality seems to be struggling a wee bit,
It's
uh,
fine. I'm so
but
sorry.
we're gonna power through it. Audio is coming through loud and clear. If for some reason
Hmm.
audio isn't, please let us know in chat, but at least the readouts I'm getting on my end, knock on wood, are coming through clearly, and that's what matters. So as always, we work through the stuff. That I had a whole rant on, I think it must have been episode 2 or 3 of Vtuber Talk, and this is episode 115 of Embrace
Whoa.
the Scuff, Love the Scuff, and
Yep.
that
Yep.
comes from me having a background in live events of something's going to go wrong. That I don't think it is a pessimistic point of view to enter a live production with the assumption that something will go wrong. That it is pessimistic to say everything will go wrong. It is pessimistic to say the show will be ruined. Don't have that type of mentality. That's not good. But to have the mentality of
it's important to acknowledge something will, because otherwise, if you're like, it's gonna be perfect, then you panic when something goes wrong.
Exactly, and that, all right, you're coming in at about 2-3 frames a second at times, and then sometimes video decides to cooperate and is looking all pretty again. But if you have that anticipation that, like you said, you're able to work through it, that you're not going to panic, and sometimes there is that stuff. Sometimes you're able to hide it better than others, but we will see. And depending on how video wants to cooperate or not, we might move to a secondary solution. It was working before we went live. Like we were prepared tonight, chat. We were prepared.
Do you want to know why it's not working? I've told my chat this before. It's my internet upload speed. For some reason, if I stream to YouTube, it's okay. But do you want to know what my internet upload speed is?
What is it?
10 megabytes a second.
Oh, geez, and I thought mine was bad.
So for some reason with video, it hates me. Every once in a while, it does this. Whether I'm sending or receiving, it just hates me.
That's so weird,
I could
though,
never figure out why, because it works for other people.
Yeah, and we had this chat going for like 20 minutes before going live, and it was fine, no issues.
Yeah.
And then, but that's how live events goes. That sometimes you can even put in all the work, have your sound test, AV test go perfectly, and then once the show starts, something haywire. And,
Everything breaks.
But that happens, and you know what? Yeah, it does not seem to be resolving. So let's take just a moment. Before we disconnect here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to at least put in the board source here, make sure that we get all that set, and let's try moving over to that. So sorry, folks. Please stand by. We will be right back.
Is my audio going through now? Okay. It wasn't working a second ago, but let me see. Let me get the camera. Is this clearer? Because sometimes, video is sometimes okay, sometimes not. For me, it's like, it's very hit and miss. It's been good the last few, so I was like, it should be fine. I probably should have warned.
All right, testing on my end, because since we are moving over to Discord, I need to add my mic as a separate source on OBS, and I think I've got that now, and doing this as pop out here, and so we should have the audio coming in, but now I'm gonna get the window capture to make sure that we have the video up. Haha! Oh, good, and it automatically selected that.
Yeah, and it already looks a lot cleaner, as long as it stays cleaner.
Yeah, just give me a sec to get this all situated. Not gonna be the prettiest that you all are getting to see. You know, this is how things work in OBS when you have to move around different sources and whatnot, but we're gonna make this all work. So thank you again so much for your patience, folks. Need to unlock that one. Yeah, okay. Let's see.
Sorry, my internet's a butt.
It's probably not helped by mine being pretty lackluster as well. That I like where I live.
The two are just powering each other up in their levels of stuff.
Yeah, powering each other down more like. But yes, this is actually coming in a lot cleaner. And
Nice!
let's see here. And I think our levels are actually good. So, yeah.
Sweet.
Seem to be all set.
Yeah, I don't know why Discord works fine, but video just, it, like, does not like me.
Oh, okay. I just realized I need to also keep that video thing active.
That's the downside of Discord. Yeah, it's annoying.
But it's going to work. We're going to be fine. And I see at least I can move over there on the other screen and not upset it. Great. Okay, cool. So we're going to be good here. Oh, I'm actually going to need to...
Great. Everything's fixed.
Yes. Again, thank you so much for your patience, folks. Where were we? Ah, yes, I guess, well, it segues into events and whatnot nicely because you've run plenty of large collab events of your own that, you do normal collabs pretty often, frankly. Everything from voice acting streams to just, random games, and we're going to get to some of those down the line, but you've also done larger productions that this past holiday season, you did, I forget, was it 50 or 60 folks for this just giant Christmas concert?
It ended up being around 68 or 69 in the end, I think.
So how did that all come about? Was this, did you have that idea, months in advance? Was it something that, October, November, you're suddenly hit with inspiration and you start to organize it really quickly? What was the story behind that one?
So I did another one the year before, and that's when I originally got the idea, because I was big sad with all the lockdowns and stuff that there weren't really any Christmas concerts or anything. And I was really selfish. I was like, I want to sing with people. I hate this. So I was like, you know what? I'll do it anyway. I'll do it myself. And then I asked a bunch of people. I was like, hey, do you want to sing on my stream? But like, I don't know how to do that with delay, so we're just gonna have everyone record, and then I'm gonna sing with everyone.
Trying to
somehow
sing,
set it up.
trying to do multi-part harmony over Discord is a fool's errand. Don't do that.
Yeah. So that ended up working out, and the first year, it was a really huge success. I think at the time it was like the highest concurrent I ever had by like at least double. It was wild. And then I was like, wow, it was really fun. I felt very rewarding, both like in terms of success and in terms of just happiness. My heart was very happy afterwards. And then the next year, I was like, what if I went for 100? Obviously, that didn't happen. It was a little too ambitious. But I did end up getting a lot of people. I did a smaller concert in the middle as well, kind of experimenting. Because the first time it was all really duets, right? But I wanted to see if I could have like big songs, like a song with 8 people singing at once, or in the case of Carol of the Bells, it was like 15 or something. Yeah,
was it you just sort of giving free rein to the guests saying, tell me what song you want to do and we'll just do that? Or did you have a particular list of suggestions or ones that you really wanted to make sure happened?
It's kind of a combination, to be honest. I had an open form that I sent out to mutuals, and on it, one of the questions was, like, what are your favorite Christmas songs? So I can try to match people up with their favorites.
Oh, okay.
But then, yeah. And for the most part, everyone who submitted, I tried giving them one of their favorites. With a few people, there were songs I thought they'd be really a good fit for. So I was like, do you mind trying this instead? But in terms of that, I also had to fill spaces, scouted people out specifically, and that was usually to fill parts in songs that were already there. I'd kind of think, who would fit best in this song, and then reach out and be like, please, I beg.
No, I definitely understand that approach, and I actually identify with it pretty well because the big thing that I do every year is my anniversary charity marathon, and the process for that is very similar, where just I send out a Google form to every past guest saying, all right, I'm doing 2 days, 12 hours each. Click the box for the hours that you are available, and then are you okay being on screen with other folks? Are you okay being on screen with other folks that you haven't collabed with before? Because you mentioned, filling slots or matching people together. And so I look at then, who's available what hours and trying to make sure there's at least a couple folks on at any given time. And a lot of the fun part for me when I'm planning is looking at, okay, where are the introductions I can make? Where are the pairings of folks that I know
Yeah,
haven't
I love
met
that too.
or like worked together or collab before that I think are actually just going to get along really, really well and being like, okay, A, meet B. I think you should be friends. And then
Yeah.
and then you're able to sort of help break the ice because you're facilitating that first introduction, but then also kind of hoping in the back of your mind, okay, I hope after this they actually just stay in touch.
Yeah, I'm a bit notorious for trying to do that.
And there was a case during the first anniversary charity marathon where I very deliberately paired a couple folks together because I knew that one of them had mentioned to me that they had hoped to collab with the other person someday. So I was like, I'm just gonna enable this. And
just gonna, make it happen.
and not even 30 minutes into that segment, the other party made a point of saying, yeah, one of my friends just DM'd me saying that they like this other person. I like them too. I was like, yes, we did it. And then the next year we had them on, and that, at that point, the other is a VIP in the other person's stream. They're really good friends. They've been hanging out
Nice.
together more than either of them talks to me, and that's okay. But it was like, that makes me so happy to see that things go well like that. And obviously, not every introduction is going to be that home run, but it's really nice when that happens.
Yeah.
For
It can be hard to network and meet other people and stuff.
Oh,
so
yeah.
it's when you see two people and you just are like, these two would literally get along so well. It's kind of a little tempting.
For that Christmas concert, I forget how many pieces were you part of, because I don't recall if you were part of every piece or if that you were in most.
Yeah, I was a bit selfish. The original idea when it started was that I wanted to sing with people, not just bring people together. So I shoved myself in every single song.
Well, nothing wrong with that. You're the organizer. You're the one putting in all the work.
Exactly. If I'm organizing it, let me shine in every song, damn it.
For singing in general, because obviously singing is something you very much enjoy and that you sing far beyond that annual concert, that you also just do karaoke and it's clear that performing is something you enjoy. Where does singing begin for you? Is that something, all the way back to grade school? Is it something you discovered later on?
It's some of my youngest memories was actually, I remember a lot, a lot. I probably did this almost every day for at least a year. I would kind of sing a song from Anastasia, Once Upon a December, and I would just spin in circles until I got so dizzy I'd fall on the floor just singing that song. And then when I felt better, I'd get up and do it again, and my parents would get so annoyed. And I don't remember, I think for a long time after that, I got really self-conscious and kind of stopped singing entirely for many, many years. But I got back into it again with anime music because I was watching Inuyasha and the openings were just too damn good. I couldn't not sing them. And then I just gave up caring. I was like, yeah, I'm sing all the time. Too bad if people don't like it.
Well, I know that I and many others are glad that you did. It's been
fun. I'm really happy.
Did you have any formal training, or are you just self-taught?
I had a very rare class here and there, a single workshop. But I could never really afford regular lessons or anything. But I did actually finally take a leap because I had COVID around a month and a half ago. And ever since I got over it, I kind of haven't been able to sing. It hurts my chest. So I started taking singing lessons with a coach I really admire. I don't know if I can say who they are, but they are an influential figure in video game music. So it's means the world to me to get to work with someone I really look up to.
Yeah, that's really neat, and that I hope that you're able to learn a whole bunch from them, and that you're able to. And I hope that
I secretly leaked who it was.
Yes, that's really exciting.
I'll let you guys know if and when I can. I just don't know if I can say publicly.
Yeah, so definitely not going to jeopardize any of that here, but I hope that you were able to celebrate that publicly sometime. That who knows, maybe a duet or a collab song in the future, and even if not, that
oh damn,
I'm genuinely...
I think I would faint. I wouldn't be able to record. I would faint.
But I'm glad that you have that, and that you're using that also to just help get your strength back after having COVID and being able to hopefully work towards doing more karaokes. And what I am guessing will probably end up being Holiday Volume 3 come December.
Most definitely. As long as I can manage, I'm gonna do it again. That's like my go-to favorite stream now. Even if I sacrifice like my sleep for like a month, it's worth it.
That's how it goes. I definitely spend a lot of time planning my charity marathon. That anytime that anyone is planning a big event like that, whether it's a subathon or a big project or a big concert, that a lot of hours go into it, hours that the average viewer is not going to see. And that I forget what the golden rule is usually for planning calculation, but it's usually something along the lines of 90-10, that in terms of hours spent, that the actual hours on the event are 10% or less compared to the hours put in for planning, rehearsals, tech, etc. And that
definitely for big events, like at least, if not more.
But it's still worth it, and that we keep doing these crazy things because we really enjoy them and they're a lot of fun, and that, you know, hopefully they go well. And sometimes they get a bit scuffed, but if anything, that just becomes a bigger motivating factor to do it again because you want to prove to yourself that you can do it better.
Exactly. The next time you'll fix the scuff, and then inevitably there'll be new scuff, but then the time after you'll fix that scuff, so it's fine.
That for me in singing, I did a little bit in like elementary, middle school for just, you know, regular chorus class. I wound up being a theater kid in high school, and I was a band geek as well, so I had an ear for music, and that I don't know music theory, that if you give me a random note, I can't say, oh, that's a B flat. I can't do that.
Yeah, same.
But
I don't know who can, but I know some people that, like, I don't know directly people who can, but I know that in theory some people can, and it baffles me.
Yeah, it's like, that's witchcraft. But if you sing a note for me, I can match that note. I'm very good at pitch matching.
Yeah!
So when it came time for musicals at high school, that despite the fact that I couldn't read choral music, I was able to fake my way through because I could read music from band. So I understand, you know, time signatures, note lengths, accents, all that jazz. But I don't know, all right, if this is the key and these are the notes, I don't know what it is, but I can listen to the soundtrack for the musical and just memorize the notes that way. And I can, at the very least, while we're doing rehearsals, look at the sheet music and say, okay, I see the pitches are going up here, and even if I'm not knowing, you know, all right, this is the key, so I'm going up 1.5 steps, yada yada, that those fragments of knowledge came together so well that at the end of it all, I don't think I even mentioned to the choral instructor until sometime in my senior year, was like, by the way, do you know, because I'm not in chorus class, you know, I'm in the band class when it comes to school day, do you know that I can't read choral music? And he was just baffled, and I was like, oh yeah, I faked him for 4 years and he had no idea.
I would have just told him day one. I would have probably cried and just been like, I'm sorry, I can't do it, but I can do my best.
Well, I figured, you know, at least freshman year, I got into just, you know, regular ensemble, no parts. I was able to fortunately get some cool parts in the later years, but I figured, okay, I made it past the audition, so it clearly doesn't matter 100%, so I just won't have that be something mentioned because I don't want it to count against me during auditions.
True.
And that I just am able to walk into auditions, and that hopefully I've been able to train myself in my ear well enough to do my best but not have that count against me. But then once it was the later half of preparation of the last musical before I graduated, it was like, all right, there's literally nothing to lose. Everything's locked in at this point. So might as well let them know. By the by, I've been faking it this entire time.
At that point, they can't work against you anyway, so I mean, you might as well just to see what they react.
Yeah. But for you, and you're saying that you are clearly a natural singer, even if you haven't had too much formal training until recently, and that the concerts that you do and the karaoke that you do are always very, very fun.
Thank you. They're my favorites.
Yeah. And you mentioned that anime music is part of what really got you into singing, that there was Anastasia way back in the day, but anime music, you mentioned Inuyasha in particular and several others, and goodness knows anime openings have a lot of really, really catchy tunes. Are there any others that have really stood out for you?
trying to think of favorite anime songs specifically. I really like to sing a lot of stuff by Ali Project. Like there's a specific opening from Rosen Maiden that I remember. That was one of my favorites and one of my first Japanese songs to sing. A lot of the songs by the singer who did the opening to Future Diary as well. Those bands kind of sing like really dark symphonic stuff and like Japanese metal, but I liked hearing stuff where there's like cute voices but singing really badass music. I was like, I want to do that.
Yeah, the duality of it all.
Yeah. It was just so much more fun because I think this is specifically why I ended up liking a lot of Japanese music too, because a lot of North American music, right, the voices very often sound very like deep or powerful and mature. And for me, with my voice to sing that, it's like it didn't really fit in my head. I didn't like how I sounded. And then I found anime music and I found some voices that sounded closer to mine, and I was like, whoa, I can do that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Appealing.
That you're right that a lot of music in whether it be J-pop or other genres do end up being in a relatively higher register compared to what you hear for like Broadway or something that certainly Broadway has plenty of sopranos, but
it's like different. It's like the alto. I don't even think alto's the right word. It's like the keys and stuff in Japanese music is like a little bit higher even for its slower stuff, because like it's not quite soprano. It's kind of like this middle ground. It's like just like the middle range starts higher, I guess.
Yeah.
And I like that.
And so had you known any Japanese at that point, or was it just, all right, memorize the lyrics and know how they go?
This is so bad. I was like 7 or something. So
that just means you started early. That means that you're
along.
practiced.
I was a kid. I didn't understand anything. So I would be like sitting there trying to mimic what I hear, but it would be all wrong. I would just be singing complete gibberish for like so many years until at one point it just I don't even know where it transitioned. At one point it wasn't gibberish anymore and I could sing like Japanese to the point that I fooled native speakers into thinking I was fluent. But
that's practice.
For like at least a couple years when I was a child, I did not even know that I wasn't singing Japanese. Like I was just mimicking the sounds, but I didn't hear them right, so it was terrible.
If you are a anime fan who isn't a Japanese native speaker, and you say that you sang songs from anime and had them right from the beginning, you're lying.
True. Everyone probably goes through phases of learning it. It takes a while.
Yeah, especially just, that's going to be the case when you're learning music in your native language, much less in something that isn't your native language.
That's true, though, because there's always a lot of times, like, even songs in our own language, we'll sing completely wrong words for, like, years, and then find the official lyrics later and be like, wait a second. Like, the whole time I got the song wrong.
Plus, I have to imagine finding official lyrics for anime songs, even now, isn't always the easiest. And goodness knows if you rewind
to... it's not popular, yeah.
Yeah, and especially if you're going early 2000s, 2010s, good luck. You might be able to find some fan subs, and even then, not necessarily. And if you don't speak Japanese and you find the official translation, you're probably finding, the hiragana, katakana, and kanji, and not the romanized version of Japanese. So you're going to be stuck. You're going to have to figure it out some way or another, and that if you can find anything, that means that you've already succeeded. TGM-san mentions pirate rap, and yes, that every so often you do get localized ones that
I like the localized ones too, though. They're cheesy and fun. People hate on them, they give me life.
Oh, absolutely.
My dream is to be in a 4Kids dub, like a 4Kids style really bad dub. That's my dream.
If nothing else, I've had this rant with a couple other guests, and I will keep it very abbreviated here. I very much believe that 4Kids is, if not the savior, they are instrumental in the building of anime in the West. That yes, they did some very heavy-handed edits, but 99 times out of 100, you have to get the approval from the licensor. So it wasn't just them doing random stuff out of hand. 2, the fact that they made it accessible, even if it was perhaps a bit too Americanized, that their big thing, they were on public broadcast. They weren't on cable like DBZ and a lot of others, that they were on local broadcast networks that are regulated with FCC. So you can't show smoking, you can't show kids in mortal peril. A lot of other things that they had to bend over backwards, but that meant that they were in more homes across the United States and Canada. That if they had gone with cable, especially in late 90s, early 2000s, when cable is not ubiquitous across the US, the number of folks that grow up with anime is probably at most 60% of what it actually wound up being, because they went public broadcast. But also, for all the people that criticize the dubs, I don't think anyone will say a bad word about their intros. Their music department knew what they were doing.
They're so good. I think another big part of why they popularized it too, and this is, I both agree and don't agree with this, but the thing is, sometimes with localization, you have to also think about your target audience, right? Sure, most of the people that are like weebs and shit, like now, like adult otaku and stuff, they're not gonna want to watch something that's heavily localized. But a child, in terms of having a target audience, like actual children, they don't fucking care if everything is accurate. They just want something that's going to entertain them and keep their eyes glued on the TV. They want stuff that's familiar and like junk food for like junk food TV. So as much as I do think some things shouldn't have very much been localized, like changing rice balls to jelly donuts is stupid.
That was the thing for me as a child, and the one that I will point to more than any other of, okay, that was a bit much. That growing up, I did not know what onigiri was. I did not know what a rice ball was. But at the same time, I could look at the screen and be like, I know what a jelly donut is, and that is not it.
And that's not it.
I don't know what this is, but I know what it's not.
Believable.
Or at the same time, of all foods, a rice ball is a relatively simple concept. That there is rice in the U.S.
It's
if you had
ball
told me
of rice.
a rice ball, I probably would have thought, oh, this is a food they made up for this universe. But taking rice and making it into a little triangle shape and putting something in it, that's a realistic enough concept. I've never heard of it before, but that's not going to break my immersion. If anything, like I said, it would have been a teaching moment. But you have
they could have had more teaching moments. They didn't as heavily localize it.
The good, or one of my, what I would say sort of favorite types of localization is brand localization. That if you have some Japanese specific brand and that you have a kid who's singing a jingle to this brand of ice cream that no one's heard of in the US, that's a problem. But then if you change it to what would you do for a Klondike bar in the localization, that's good localization, because now you're making it so the intent is kept and that you are changing something that is very culturally specific for that moment and for understanding that. That's a very specific example for sure, but those are the types of things that still do happen a non-zero number of times, and you don't realize it because it's usually done very cleanly and well.
Yeah, I feel like the best example of localization in that way done right is actually the Ace Attorney series, because like all of the names they change, right, to English puns, but in the Japanese game, every single character's name is a pun. And if you just use the Japanese names, like sure, it'll be more accurate, but in terms of cultural value,
it'll be literally lost in translation.
Because like if you can't understand that every name is supposed to be a joke, you've lost the humor of the entire series.
If you don't have
did a really good job of keeping it.
If you don't have Red, White of Blue Corp, and if you don't have there's so many creative names, and that goodness knows the localization team at Capcom understood the assignment. That it's so good what they do.
It's what I try to explain sometimes with localization, and why sometimes I think it is important rather than a direct translation, because like there's two things you have to consider. One, there's the meaning of every single word, right? But then the other thing is the cultural meaning or the overall
intent.
Vibe and atmosphere. Because if a scene is supposed to be really funny, like if you have a joke that's a pun or something and it makes no sense in English, translating it directly does a disservice, because then it's not funny anymore. Or if there's something that's like a reference that's supposed to make you really sad and you wouldn't get it outside of Japan, like changing it does a disservice because no one will understand. More than anything, I think the overall atmosphere is really important, and I think a lot of people forget that when they hate on some things for making small changes. changes for the sake of like censoring it are kind of weird, which is why the jelly donut thing didn't make sense.
Yeah.
But like for some things, it just makes less sense to do direct.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of Ace Attorney, that's actually what we have playing in the background today. That Ace Attorney is a series that you very much enjoy, not just for its very well done localization, but that in general, it is a series that is near and dear to your heart. You really enjoy visual novels, and if memory serves, that's part of what got you into gaming.
Yeah, I'd always played games like my whole life, but I wouldn't say I was really, really obsessed with games until I got into Hotel Dusk, actually. It was gifted to me because I'd always been like really behind with games and consoles growing up. I tend to get them a bit later than most people. And I got a DS and Hotel Dusk quite late. I don't even know if you could still buy DS games at that point. I always find them at like antique stores.
Like, of all the games, Hotel Dusk was not a commercial success. It was a niche game.
No.
That's not one that I would expect.
Such a success within its niche.
Yes, but at the same time, I'm so curious. So you said it was a gift?
Yeah.
So how did whoever gave it to you come upon it? Were they someone who was a big gamer and into visual novels themselves, so they had that inside track? Was it a happenstance? Because I can't imagine like a grandmother who doesn't know games walking into a GameStop and being recommended Hotel Dusk or gravitating toward Hotel Dusk versus other games, even if they knew that you like visual novels or might be into those. That's such a particular game to wind up with. Do you know how that happened?
I do, actually. It's kind of lazy. So all my family did games and stuff too, right? And I remember that my dad said he found it somewhere on sale for $5, and he's like, "Here, I got it for you. I don't know if you'll like it or not. It's $5."
Did he even know what it was, or was it simply,
No.
oh, it's a $5 game, might as well?
He's like, "It's a $5 game. Sure, my kid will love it." But then I actually did.
Yeah, just stroke of luck right there. Sometimes fate just works, and that definitely literally fell into your lap there.
It sent me on a pretty intense quest to find like every single story visual novel I could and collect them on the DS. But of course at that point they'd all been out for years, so it was like really hard to track them all down. But I collected a physical copy of almost all of them, even though I had to pay very scary prices for some.
I was about to say that you probably did not pay retail for that because, one, you mentioned that you got most of these after the DS's primary life cycle, but also, while the DS did actually have a relatively good visual novel library, certainly for its time in the US, that a lot of these games did not have large print runs because this was
that's
not
the main issue.
That I would say the DS is where visual novels really got popularized in the West. And certainly they had been a thing in Japan for a while, but very few, if any, had actually made it stateside, and very few, if any, had been, breakout hits. But I feel like Ace Attorney and, to a lesser degree, Professor Layton, which is a series that is very near and dear to my heart, that those two helped really bring visual novels to prominence in the West. And but even those didn't have big release waves. So for all the others that were even smaller, that you probably had to do some searching.
It was hard. I still don't have some of them. I'm gonna find them eventually. It's just a struggle.
Do you recall what the craziest search you had to do with that? Was there any particular game that just you couldn't find and eventually track down after however long of trying?
The sequel to Hotel Dusk, Last Window, it was only released in Europe. It was never localized in North America.
Okay, so it was...
But because the original...
But it was still in English because it was in Europe.
Yes. But it was very, very small print run, only in Europe. And, because it wasn't region locked on the original DS, you could still play it, but you had to find a copy that was printed in Europe. And I looked for so many years, even on eBay, it was like $300. I was like, I'm never gonna find this. And then I one time found it at a booth at a convention for $30, and I just started crying and pointed at it, and I was like, is this real? It was real.
Yes. There have been a couple cases for me, just finding anime that, had a small print run, wasn't able to get it anywhere, or, all right, I saw it on eBay that one time for $150, but I'm not paying that. And then you find this one vendor at a convention, and they just have all this stuff, and it's really cheaply priced. And it's like, I guess they've just been sitting on this for however long the print's been around, and that they don't bother updating their prices necessarily for quote-unquote market value, and you just luck into it.
Yeah.
But certainly that Hotel Dusk, like I mentioned already, not the biggest name, and goodness knows the sequels are never going to do as well as the first installation, at least most of the time. So, yeah, I didn't even know that Hotel Dusk 2... Well, I guess I was so right, because I was going to say I didn't know Hotel Dusk 2 got printed in English and that it wasn't in the U.S., but then also, that makes it even more impressive, the fact that it was a European copy that made its way to a U.S. convention, I'm assuming.
I don't understand how, but I was so lucky.
You mentioned that you've actually assembled what is a complete or almost complete library of DS visual novels. How many games does that make?
I don't actually know. It's probably not as many as you think, though. I think it's like under 30. I'd have to look at my shelf to actually know for sure. But
I was
have
going to
a
spitball
lot.
around like 30 to 50-ish, so yeah, but...
Yeah, I think it's under 30, to be honest. At least the big ones. There might be some like really small ones I hadn't heard of. Like, I think I'm missing one of the Jake Hunter games. But to be fair, those are kind of bad. So
I've never heard of Jake Hunter, but...
I'm okay with that.
But you also...
It's a very bootleg Ace Attorney.
Okay. Well,
it's kind of its own thing, but it feels like they took the idea of Ace Attorney and tried it, but it took itself too seriously.
Well, speaking of bootleg visual novel games, you brought to my attention bootleg Professor Layton. So instead of Professor Layton and the Mysterious Village, the Curious Village, it was Dr. Lautrec and the Forgotten Knights. This is full on, just change Professor to Doctor.
I have a physical copy. I have this one.
And the animation style is so blatantly ripped off that it makes me wonder, is half the staff just X-Level 5 that they went to Konami and were authorized to make a game there? Or did Konami have their own internal team that was just given the creative brief of make Professor Layton, but legally distinct so we can have our own series for this because it seems to be doing well?
I like to imagine they just, wanted to make a Professor Layton fan fiction and somehow got
there you
approved.
go. Yeah, that just somebody had the passion project. It's like, I love Professor Layton and I work for Konami, so I'm just going to write this up and see if I can get project funding for it, and that they asked the right people and got it greenlit. And I have not played that. I kind of want to track it down, but you also mentioned that it's like half stealth.
It's not a puzzle game. It's a stealth game. Like, there's these very rare simple puzzles that's always like the same puzzle. 90% of the game is just stealth. You're like moving boxes and dodging people that are gonna like kill you. That's it.
I even saw a bit of gameplay that made it look
Metal
like
Gear.
There was even some RPG elements to it.
Yeah, it's like, it basically looks like they're trying to clickbait you into thinking it's Professor Layton, but it's just an entirely different game.
Oh yeah, the way the trailer is structured and even the dialogue chosen, that they have what is effectively a twist on Layton saying of, every puzzle has an answer or everything is related to puzzles, and that this guy just, you can even hear the voice actor emphasizing the word puzzle. And
yeah, even though there's no puzzles.
There's no puzzles here.
The best part is if you notice, the trailer very purposefully did not include any actual gameplay.
Nope, they did not. It was a animatic, and it was a very pretty animatic. It was
gorgeous.
Still, one or two steps down from the animation that you're going to expect from Layton, but it certainly wasn't bad. And
no,
I'm curious, was the story
at least really good too?
Yeah.
The story is actually not that bad, but the voice acting, I will actually argue, is better than the voice acting in Professor Layton.
Ooh, okay.
It's like actually some of the best voice acting I've ever heard on the DS. I was really impressed by it.
Yeah, and I feel like voice acting in games, at least in the US, really did start around that time. That you had a couple ones in, there were some in Dreamcast, some in N64, but a lot of those are the ones that are prolifically bad. The ones that you see those old YouTube compilations and just say, how on earth did they greenlight these? Or like, it is fascinating to see the growth of the industry, not just obviously in game design, in technology, graphical fidelity, but also the maturation of the voice acting industry, going from just things that today would result in people not being cast. The skill level for what I assume is, it's a bit of both sides, both directors and the actors, and that's, I don't mean to insult them. That is the industry itself is young at that point in time, and neither the actors nor the directors have a lot of experience there, and that naturally, if people don't have the experience, it's not going to be as good as when you have 2 decades of experience and 2 decades of people honing the craft both professionally and at the amateur level, which then brings up the level of the professional performances as well. So, this is in no way meant to belittle what we saw back in the day, that's how every industry goes. But it is amusing to look back and be like, wow, how far we've come in just a couple of decades. But,
I think a big part of it too is that they were kind of still learning what works and what doesn't, just in general, for what consumers want for video games. Because the voice acting you hear in video games is not the same acting you hear on camera. It's not the same acting you hear in cartoons or even anime. It's kind of its own level, I guess, of expectations and tones. And it took a while for people to figure out, what do our players want to hear? What don't they want to hear? How much budget should we allocate to acting and stuff like that?
They also have, frankly, one of the most difficult formats of voice acting to do, and that is line-by-line delivery, because when you're recording a movie, a TV series, or a proper unending cutscene, that you can have a conversation or have someone deliver a monologue and have it be contiguous, and that's fine. But when it is, page by page, quote unquote, on the DS, and that you hit A and you see a couple lines of dialogue, and then the dialogue stops, and the voice acting also stops to wait for you to finish and bring up the next page. So all of the voice actors have to give their lines, and then they wait for the next line, and the next line. And naturally, that performance and that intonation is going to end up being a bit more stilted, just because they have to actually build in these pauses and try to hope that they end up being strung together in a way that sounds all right.
And everyone plays at a different pace, too, so depending on the pace you play, it could sound more natural or not, too.
But you mentioned that, I even have to keep remembering, it is Dr. Lautrec. And they even baked in a bit of their own pun there of, trekking, adventuring, but they put in the law, and it is spelled Lautrec. So they made it sound French, and I guess that was, sorry, I accidentally bumped that. There we go.
Good.
That they made them French as opposed to Leighton, who is very British. But I'm
trying to distance a little bit.
Just enough to be legally distinct, but I'm happy to hear that the story and the acting was actually very good.
Surprisingly. I still never finished it, so it might go to hell, but at least it starts off not so bad.
Maybe you just have to watch a Let's Play or something.
The backlog, it's too big. The one problem with liking story games, they're so long. You can't even finish one, and 5 more are out, and you're like, oh no!
No, that's the constant problem, whether you're a game fan, anime fan, that we have an embarrassment of riches nowadays in terms of good content, and that's before the number of VTubers that are out there, the live streams, TV shows, books, movies, music, and that everyone has their personal list of things that they want to watch, read, play, and I feel like for every title that you cross off that list, 3 to 5 more are added.
Yeah. That's good and it's bad. It's bad because it's almost stressful because it's so hard to make the choice of what to prioritize, but at the same time it's good because you'll never be left wanting more.
Do you have any personal recommendations for diamonds in the rough when it comes to visual novels, whether it be for the DS or more modern consoles?
There is one that I play a lot on stream. I want to get back and finish it, actually. It's an indie one made from a team in Australia. It has full English voice acting. And it's called Corpse Factory. And it's kind of like, people say it's a lot like almost Hellgirl meets Death Note. It's a really fun thriller. You don't actually make any choices in it, really, so it's kind of like a straight novel, but the story is really fun to follow. And the characters are very well fleshed out with some good music. The opening is even sung by Emmy Evans, who did all the music in Nier. So it's a really solid indie visual novel for PC and Switch, I believe.
I'm going to have to look that up, and that you make my ears perk when you say Death Note. That I will admit, yes, I enjoyed Death Note. It was one of the first anime that I had seen before it was dubbed. That I remember watching it on, well, at that point there weren't legal streaming websites. Let's just put it that way. There were not in 2007. So if it hadn't aired in the US and you wanted to watch it, you found a way.
Well.
Also, Captain Krabs, welcome on in. Thank you so much for the raid. Hello, Raiders. This is Vtuber Talk. I'm Jay. I'm talking with Obake PAM, the CEO of PlayAsia. Pam, if you'd like to introduce yourself to the folks that are coming on in from Captain Krabs.
Hello, I'm Obake PAM. Some stuff that we already talked about that I do, just to catch you up real quick. I like a lot of anime music, a lot of story games. I do a lot of singing and voice acting. And I own a company. I'm the CEO of PlayAsia. Yeah.
Captain Krabs was, I think, episode 11 of Vtuber Talk.
Nice.
That he was way back at the beginning. DJ, artist, game maker, does a lot of very cool stuff. So welcome on in, Captain. Really glad to have you. Hopefully your stream went well.
Thank you for buying controllers from me.
Oh. That you actually do have merch, and I do have the link for that down in the channel panels, and it'll be there on the YouTube release. Hi, YouTube. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and all that jazz.
Hello, YouTube!
And you actually primarily stream on YouTube, so while I am getting you some shout-outs here for the Twitch channel, that the YouTube link will be down there, and that if people are looking to follow you, that's going to be the primary place that you stream.
Yeah, I do very occasionally stream on Twitch. I used to multi-stream on both at the same time.
And then they switched the
which was
rules.
Allowed. Yeah, it was allowed if you didn't have YouTube or if you didn't have Twitch monetized. But now they decided it's just not allowed at all. So I decided fuck Twitch.
Yep. That
I had to cut one. It's gonna be Twitch.
That I never actually took affiliate on the channel as well. That just part of VTuber Talk is that I decided to not monetize it. And I meant to do multi-streaming, and just for a very long time did not have a powerful computer, so I didn't want to strain it. And when I did get a more powerful computer, I had forgotten to actually set up the multi-stream, and was reminded when they made that announcement a month or two ago saying you can't multi-stream anymore. It was like, well, crap. Oh, well.
That was really frustrating, and like, it hurts a lot of smaller creators who are trying to figure out which platform is better for them.
Yeah.
Because, like, if you don't have, like, 4,000 concurrent or, like, even 50 concurrent, like, there's nothing wrong with using both and trying to figure out which one you want to establish, because you're always going to get more eyes when you hit 2 places, right? And kind of taking that option away from people who aren't making a lot of money on your website anyway is really dumb. Like, all you're doing is losing business.
Now that Twitch obviously has had combination of hits and misses, and a few more misses than hits recently, shall we say.
Yeah.
But hopping back to visual novels and just all the craziness therein, so you mentioned that this one had it was Death Note-like elements. Where does that come into play?
Yeah. It's kind of like, so the main girl runs a website, right? And on the website, you can send in a photo of someone and their phone number, and then the next day, that person will get a photo of their own dead body, time-stamped from the future, and then they'll die.
Oh, okay, wow. Yeah, so I'm definitely seeing the Death Note parallels, and then it's almost like The Ring at that point.
it's like a bunch of fun stuff kind of combined, but it also feels original enough that it's really interesting on its own too.
And which console is that for?
PC and Switch. I don't know if it might be on more, but it's at least on those ones.
Might have to check that one out, especially if it is just a more plain novel that that, if anything, for me, actually makes it easier to consume, that I don't need to worry too much about, paying super close attention or multiple endings. Thank you,
Which
TGM
can be very
San.
time-consuming to finish them all.
Yeah, that most end up being pretty long, but at the very least, that'll be one maybe I can get in my free time. I say maybe because, that list, that ever-expanding list of things that you want to play and watch that, oh goodness, my list has gotten very long over the past couple years. Also, you're free to answer questions in the chat out loud. You don't need to worry about typing.
Okay. Okay.
But yes, if you're looking to catch Pam, that as TGM-san mentions, she usually streams on Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday. She actually had a stream earlier today where she was touring VCAT. A lot of fun stuff going on over there.
The Wednesday can kind of be iffy, though. It depends. Sometimes it can be like Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. It kind of really depends on the week. Because lately I do so much traveling that it's kind of like I stream when I'm actually home, whatever that is.
Yeah, you've been traveling a ton lately. That sometimes for conventions, sometimes for work. But like, are you at the point now? Hopefully, you've got some good frequent flyer miles, or just airport lounge perks built up.
I alternate between 2 different airlines depending which one is cheaper. And I'm trying to build points for those 2 specific ones. And I hit frequent flyer on one, so I can use the lounges for free anytime I fly. And on the other one, I'm about to hit frequent, but what it means for that one is just that I get a free flight and then it resets. One free flight is nice.
Yeah, that's something. Do you have any favorite travel hacks that you've learned over the years?
If you're a VTuber, take your microphone out of your bag. They thought my microphone was a gun when I left it in my bag. It wasn't a good time.
Oh dear.
Just take it out of your bag. Just trust me.
Yeah, and at least that way you don't need to worry about it being thrown around as it is brought in and out of the plane.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and also mind the gap. Whenever you go to a city where there's trains, always assume the gap between the train and the platform is bigger than you think it's going to be, because I've fallen in.
Like, had your foot fallen or fallen in?
Up to my thigh falling.
Oh my goodness. Oh,
and
no.
I had to have people pull me out. Just one leg. Like, the other leg was on the ground. I was just kind of dazed trying to figure out what happened, and I got pulled out.
Well, at least you had
I thought I was dead. I was like, cool, the train's gonna run. This is where I die.
Oh boy. Well, at least you had some helpful folks nearby. I know that one of the other games that you enjoy, or I'm not sure if it's the game version, the anime version, or both, but Steins Gate is an anime that I very much enjoy. I know it's from a visual novel initially, but I haven't played it. How have you consumed
I
Steins
haven't,
Gate?
but I haven't finished playing it, but I have finished watching it. Both Steins Gate and Zero. I only have the game for the first one, though, but I have kind of the remake of the game, which basically looks exactly like the anime, but you can pause it anytime you want, and it has some like additional scenes and stuff.
Ooh.
That one's pretty cool, because they literally took scenes from the anime and then reanimated some as well. So it just looks like you're playing the anime instead of a regular visual novel, like with mouth flaps and everything. It's pretty cool.
Ooh, I appreciate that, and that Steins Gate, that was one I watched dubbed, and you want to talk about good dubbing and good localization, I thought that one was a masterclass.
It was one of my favorite dubs of all time. I watched Zero as it was coming out with Japanese voices, which are still incredibly good, but I can't lie, I kind of missed the dub because it was just so well done.
Yeah, that one was J. Michael Tatum's baby, that he did the script adaptation, the directing, and was Okabe, the lead character. So that was just
he did a
his
great
thing.
job.
And yeah, the care that he put into that project really does show.
Yeah. You can definitely tell it was a passion project, not just a cash cow. And I like projects like that. That's why I tend to like whether it's games or anime, I tend to end up following things that have more niche followings than a lot of mainstream. I just really appreciate when a lot of love and care is to put into something, and I find that often tends to be stuff that doesn't blow up really big.
Yeah, and that makes sense because the ones that are meant to be a bit more mainstream, more broadly appealing, are going to be engineered to be so in a lot of ways, and that goes all the way down to the just basic planning and programming that it's not going to be bad, certainly, that things are mainstream and popular because they are good, but that they're going to be, like you said, perhaps a bit less personal, a bit less tender loving care put into everything. But when you have something that is in a niche genre, that the ones that end up standing out usually are the ones that are those labors of love, because they're folks who have either grown up with that genre or who've put together a very special project and have been able to get a breakout hit because of the care they put into it.
Very much so, yeah.
You want to talk about good anime openings, Hacking to the Gate, all time.
Yeah! That is a really good banger. It's hard to sing. The singer is, like, really good. I don't know what it is about it. It's like, I think for me, it's a lot of the song is in my vocal break. It's like, I can't go between my head and my chest voice that fast. But she's a pretty masterclass at those high notes. It's amazing.
Yeah, actually, I hadn't even thought about it from the actual performance perspective, but now that you mention it, that
the visuals too, though, are just like stunning.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Is there any anime opening or ending insert song that has been one of your favorites to perform?
To perform? Anime ones. I think I sang it a couple times. It's not even within my vocal range. I just really like to sing the opening to Shiki. It's like done by a visual kei band with a male singer. I don't care. I like the song. There's one I would really like to learn on flute. It's a really, really stupid ending song though. I don't know if you or anyone else here has ever seen Paranoia Agent, but the ending is horrifying. It's like the simplest and scariest song I've ever heard, and I love it and hate it, and I want to play it on flute just to curse everybody so they can watch it and be like, I don't like this.
I know of Paranoia Agent. I haven't actually seen it, so can't say that I
haven't watched it. I just know the ending. And the opening. The opening is it's a piece of work.
Thank you that you've sent it to me, that I'll have to watch that afterwards. I don't think I could play it on stream without getting DMCA'd.
No. I just won't remember to send later, so I'm spamming stuff.
Are there any, I know you've actually done a number of localized translated covers yourself. That you did one recently, if memory serves, of Idol.
Yeah, I did.
Now, did you do the localization on that yourself? Did you work with someone else for that? I admittedly forgot to check the credits.
So basically what I did, I found an official translation, just like subtitles on the song. And I basically took my knowledge of Japanese and that translation and kind of rewrote it over and over again, trying to make sure that it really fit the plot of the manga, because I've been a long-time reader. Just to make sure that, like, more than anything, I thought it did the series justice rather than just, like, fit timing, rhyme, let's go. It's like, no, to me it's more important that a song kind of has the same heart in both languages. So I tried really hard to do that.
Yeah, that was a fun thing to see, just, as a third party, that a whole bunch of people tried their hand at translation, and that there were certain obvious consistencies for the underlying themes and everything, because you're still working with the same original source material, so things are going to end up being close. But it was really fascinating to see the subtle differences between all of the different takes, and just that was a really cool thing that you don't actually see very often, because usually if there's a very popular song that people end up covering, that it will either be in English already, or that most folks will just stick to Japanese. I'm not sure what it was about Idol, but it felt like more people than average actually tried their hand at translation there.
I think part of it even could be just the lyrics in the series in general, especially within the VTuber community. Like, it does deal with a lot of the downsides of showbiz that a lot of other shows don't want to get into.
That makes sense.
So it feels very personal for a lot
Yeah.
of us in at least one point. So that's why we kind of end up getting very attached to it. And then it's like, we want this song, we understand, we want to make it ours.
That actually makes a lot of sense now that you say it. That just since, like you said, that there's a lot of talk of fame and that there's some pretty distinct parallels even for VTubing throughout the series. And that since that's going to end up appealing more to folks who are either musically inclined or just performance inclined in general, that it meant that more people try their hand in it than any given more random anime opening. But Oshinoko certainly burst onto the scene, at least for the anime last season, that there was the contingent of folks who had already read the manga and who knew ahead of time, but it didn't feel like Chainsaw Man. That last year Chainsaw Man had fanfare, pomp and circumstance. People were anticipating it. I have not seen an anime adaptation of a manga with that much hype, like a year in advance. People were like, oh my gosh, Chainsaw Man. I didn't hear anything about Oshinoko. Maybe one or two people had said, oh, this series is really good. But then the week the premiere drops, and part of it was because they had that triple-length premiere, which was basically a movie. And
that was a godsend. If they hadn't done that, I don't think it would have been as popular as it was. It ended exactly where it needed to for
absolutely agree that it would have fit the usual 3-episode test rule for a lot of folks. But when something so integral happens at episode 3 that just statistically for any show, it doesn't matter if it's anime or a TV show on traditional broadcast or streaming, that the drop-off between episode 1 to 2 for any series, bare minimum 40% drop-off. And that's if you are one of the best shows out there. Most shows are going to see 60% plus drop-off.
I feel like the best equivalent in terms of other shows that really could have benefited from a really long episode 1, Madoka Magica, honestly. After a few episodes, the tone really shifts. And having the same thing would have, I think, like Madoka already became a very big series, but I think it would have done even better if it had something similar.
Yeah, that I think you have a really good point there. That that's actually a very good parallel, because if memory serves, the moment the chomp, shall we say, happened about 3 episodes in, so that would have been about where
it's
to
either
end
3
it.
or 4 for sure.
And I think it's going to be really interesting to see, and just because of production timelines, you won't start to see it for about a year. But my guess is, in about a year's time, we are going to see a spike in the number of shows that do that. That ones that are airing, like, that just started, we just had a new season start in July. It's still not going to be soon enough for the fall season come October, but I think that next spring, summer, when there are series that have, been in their early planning now and will be released then, that once it's had that time to catch up, I think we're actually going to see a lot more of those, and it's going to become a question of just how many do it, and does it become overdone, or is there a balance? Where does that wind up? Nobody knows, but I think it's very safe to guess that there will be more.
Yeah, I think it depends on the show though, because I don't know if you're watching this season, Undead Murder Farce.
Yes.
Episode 1 for that one I thought was really solid for short episode 1. Like, it hooked me from the first 20 minutes. I was like, wait, I love this.
That was one that I watched, and I finished the episode saying, I'm not entirely sure what I just watched, but I liked it. That there's
exactly, it was great.
There's so many quirks about that show, just from, without giving spoilers, the basics of the characters and just the broader world right now has mystery. And I'm sure that that's going to be unveiled as we go along, but the word hook here is very appropriate, that there was more than enough to make me say at the end of episode 1, I want to see what happens next.
Yeah, I won't say what actually happens too, but I remembered at the end of episode 2, I just, like, the credits rolled and I was like, what the fuck? This has been like 2 minutes, what the fuck? It doesn't feel like it should be over. It always leaves you wanting more, and I like that.
That's a sign of a good series, when it's just gone in a flash and it's like, wait, no, we just started, right? How is that already, how did we already get through the runtime? Is that one that you've read the source material for and have been anticipating, or are you going in with no knowledge of this one as well?
No, I just watched the trailer and I was like, oh my god, there's a head in a cage. Cool.
Yeah. For me, it was the combination of the key art, and I will usually read just the descriptions from one of the aggregator sites, either My Anime List, AniChart, LiveChart, etc. And that it was different. That it's not even your normal fantasy or thriller. That it seems to be a more complex and difficult to categorize show. And anytime something isn't easy to categorize, inherently that gets my attention because it means that you're doing something that is a bit outside of the mold.
Yeah, because it's like has a lot of dark humor as well, but it's also kind of serious. You want to say it's a mystery, but sometimes you're like, is it a drama? Is it a comedy? It's kind of everything.
Yeah, and that's what really sets shows apart. That there's a lot of fantasies, a lot of isekais, and don't get me wrong, I do enjoy a good power fantasy isekai every now and again.
Sometimes they're good junk food anime, you know?
Absolutely.
Sometimes you just want to sit back and watch garbage and love it.
Yeah, and that is the genre a little bit more diluted than it used to be, perhaps, but again, that's sort of
So is the entirety of anime, though. There's like garbage in every genre now.
And in some ways, I find that to be a good thing because it means that the industry itself has scaled to the point where there are so many things being made that even if not everything is a hit, an instant classic, it makes me feel as a viewer more confident that there aren't any good series that are being left out or slipping through the cracks, because if we only got 5-10 shows a season, they were all amazing, but then, all right, how many other amazing shows aren't getting made because the industry is too small right now or they're too picky, and that this is sort of a quote-unquote light season for me where I'm only going to be watching only quote-unquote about 10 shows. That's what I do with my free time. I watch anime and I watch VTubers. Are there any shows that you're...
have hobbies.
Yeah. Are there any other shows that you're watching this season that you are particularly eager on, particularly to see episode 2, 3?
I'm gonna look up the live chart website so I can remember what the heck I'm watching. My brain is... I can't remember unless I look at a list. What am I watching? I tried watching a bit of the new Horimiya, but I'm not really sure if I'm gonna stick with it or not. I really liked the first season of Horimiya, but this one is basically just parts of the manga that weren't animated, so it's kind of like a bunch of insert short stories, which I'm kind of unsure about. Oh, Zom 100, Bucket List of the Dead. That had one of the best first episodes I've ever seen.
That was a heck of a first episode, and just just the colors. The colors were...
And the lack of color at the right moments. Like, it's one of the most unique, like, as someone who deals with it, I'm not shy about it. It's one of the best representations of, like, the worst downs of depression that I think I've ever seen in anime. I was like, oh my god, they're not glorifying it. They're not making it look cute. Yo!
Yeah.
I liked that.
That, I hadn't heard of that one, but I know that at AX they had a premiere for it, and I heard a bunch of rumblings at Anime Expo that made me sort of turn my head and be like, oh, okay, this isn't, Chainsaw Man levels of anticipation again, but this one is anticipated. People know this one. And I had already seen the description and the key art and was like, okay, this looks weird that, it has this bright yellow background in the key art. There's a shark in the background, plus all the zombies, and it was already wild enough to make me say, okay, what's going on here? Let's see what this is about. And then hearing that there was some anticipation, even if it's not crazy levels of hype, that's a good thing for me to see, okay, there are people here that are eager for this, that have been waiting for this, even if it's not necessarily the big new mainstream one, that this is established, and that means it's done something right. Are there any series that, even if they aren't airing right now, even if they aren't airing soon, that have had adaptations confirmed that you're really looking forward to?
I'm trying to think. I feel like there has been one, but I can't.
Admittedly, that is a bit of a tough question. Because
oh, wait, no. I thought I had it in my brain, but then I lost it in my brain. I don't know. I can think of like one that I'd really like to see an adaptation for, but I don't think it'll ever get one.
What's that?
There's a visual novel I'm playing called Cupid Parasite, it is an otome game that's really fun with like quirky characters, great music. The whole game has a really fun like rockabilly vibe, and I would love to see it turned into an anime with the colors and everything. I think it'd be amazing. But unfortunately, I'm also scared if it ever gets an adaptation because most otome games get the absolute like dog shit worst anime adaptations ever.
You know, if you're gonna get an otome game adaptation, it has to be a reincarnated as the villainess in the otome game.
Those ones are so good, unironically though.
Oh yeah,
like,
I love
the
those.
villainous otomes, they've been so good.
That my big thing, the types of shows and series that I enjoy are smart characters doing smart things. That's why I love Death Note. My favorite of all time is Code Geass. And it took me a while to realize why I kept gravitating towards these reincarnated otome villainous ones. And it's because, unlike shonen isekais where, you know, they're reborn and they have, you know, crazy powers and it's, you know, action, that the reincarnated into an otome series is a smart character doing a smart thing, that they have this knowledge and they know where their story is supposed to end. They have the knowledge of the characters, their motivations, and what is the default timeline. And then they need to use their wits combined with their knowledge to undo fate, to reverse engineer and avoid what is supposed to be their default. So it relies on their charisma and their smarts, and that's what gets me.
Yeah, because a lot of the shonen isekai, they feel more like the entire thing is relying on their luck or on some power they happen to be born with. It's very often someone who was like very incompetent or very like they felt like they were a loser, they couldn't do anything, or they didn't want to do anything in their past life. And then they just gave up, and then suddenly they came back and it's like, whoa, they have all these girls and all these powers. But the villainous ones, it's like, this is someone who's like, oh shit, I just came into this world. I'm going to die.
I don't want to die again.
I need to use my brain. It's so much more interesting to watch. It's not just like watching all the people drool over this one character. It's like it actually feels like a thriller at times, just wondering if they'll die or not.
Yeah, exactly. And the whole thing of, okay, I already died once to get here. I don't want to go through that again.
The best example, I think, as an equivalent, like comparing to the otome ones, would probably be ReZero in that way. ReZero is obviously a lot more violent, but it's similar in terms of like the genre. Because he knows that he's like leading to his death and he's trying to prevent it.
Yeah, and the difference there is Subaru doesn't go in knowing the story. He finds it out because he's going through that Groundhog Day loop in that he, if anything, has to go through it multiple times to get the full picture of the story and then figure out how to reverse engineer it after he has painfully died however many times. But I do really appreciate that about ReZero, that Subaru is completely unremarkable, is a entirely normal human. He has some people around him who have some fantastic powers, but he's certainly not in control of them, and in certain cases, these people are actively against him. So it creates that thriller, that tension, and then that wittiness about it also. I very much agree there. It's just, I think what makes isekais so popular, it's sort of twofold. One, obviously, we've had a couple ones. I feel like Sword Art Online was sort of a turning point for modern isekais. Goodness knows there had been ones before that, but I think that was sort of the starting point of the modern isekai craze that we now have.
For sure.
But I also think it is a very convenient and understandable, even if perhaps a bit lazy, device that allows the writer to get exposition in a more natural way, that instead of it being a normal fantasy show where they need to do the exposition somehow and explain to the viewer who isn't a member of this fantasy world how the fantasy world works, they bring in the character.
It's a very easy transition.
Because, well, this character doesn't know because they're from our world, and therefore we're not explaining to the viewer, we're explaining to the character, and that does actually make for a more natural delivery of exposition. I'm not going to begrudge them for that. It becomes,
and everyone in it's a player from the real world, so it's like nobody knows, so it makes perfect sense to have the game teach them.
Yep. Or even if it is just the main character that has been brought in, that it at least gives you the vehicle for that exposition, and also gives the viewer someone to sort of identify with and ask questions along with. So I understand how we got here, and it's just, as with anything, when it is done with a great deal of repetition, even if it is done well with repetition, can start to wear a bit thin, and that's just, human nature for anything that you see in excess. So it's not meant as a jab at the genre, at the writers. Like I said, it's very logical how we wound up here, but I also think it's a bit logical of why there is perhaps a bit of exhaustion in it.
Yeah, people want new stuff.
But like I said, we have so much new stuff. There's like 40 to 50 shows every season. It's crazy.
Yeah. I do trailers, I do a stream on Twitch usually, actually, once a season, where I'll go through and watch every single trailer and write out a list of what I want to watch. And I've noticed almost every time that stream gets longer.
Yeah. And that you can see if you go, on live chart or something and just scroll back to 2007, 2010, that you're going to get somewhere between 20, 35-ish shows a season, and now we're running consistently at 40 to 50-ish. So it ends up being quite a bit. But I know that you do those streams. I was lurking around the most recent one. I usually do that with some friends that, not necessarily watching all the trailers, but we'll at least go through and sort of read some of the synopses and be like, okay, maybe we'll get this one. I don't think I'll watch it, but if you're going to watch that one, let me know how it is, and that maybe I'll join in after episode 2, 3 if you say it's good.
Yeah. I noticed too, because I just scrolled back with one. And one notable thing, though, that I've noticed is quite different compared to anime now versus anime, way back. Because I watch a lot of retro anime, right? I tend to I tend to gravitate towards older stuff for some reason. And then I scrolled to a random year and I recognized every single show on the list, even though there's fewer. But now, it's like every season, most of them, by the time the next season comes around, I don't even remember they existed.
Yep.
There's just so many, they kind of pass right through. So the series themselves aren't as meaningful anymore. That's kind of the cost, I guess, we get for the variety.
Yeah. Like I said, that at the very least, that who knows how many good concepts were pitched that didn't get made back in the day, and that I feel like most of the ones that are good are going to see the light of day now, but you are right that it still does dilute things. Are there any series, whether they be classic, modern, or a couple years old, that you feel are diamonds in the rough, ones that you say, okay, even if you haven't heard of this, there hasn't been a ton of hype, please watch this show?
Probably one of my favorites. I did not watch this when it was coming out. I watched it a number of years later. I binged the entire thing in 3 days. There's an anime called Shin Sekai Yori, or From the New World. It's a big brain show, I'm not gonna lie. If you want an easy show to sit back and relax, do not watch this show. If you want a big brain show that's going to challenge your brain and make you think every single episode, it's also a slow burn, right? So you can kind of tell things are a little off in episode 1, but it also feels kind of slice of life a little bit. And then every episode starts getting a little weirder. And a lot of the stuff is metaphors for things in the real world. So if you compare them, you can see a lot of parallels in the real world, and it's really fascinating to just watch society. This isn't really a spoiler, because I won't say the way it happens, but to just watch society in the show just completely break down. It's so fascinating.
Yeah, that's
and
one
I
of the...
think it's a good look at humanity. It's a really fun... Well, I say fun, but it's really dark and fucked up. It's a really, really fun watch if you like big brain shows.
Yeah, and that's something fun to see, whether it's anime, movie, or just other media, that ones that end up either doing those examinations of society, or ones that end up in some ways predicting things that, Serial Experiments Lane obviously has a lot of stuff that wound up being pretty true
I
of
want to
online and
start
social
watching
media.
Lane because of modern stuff. I never watched Lane, but the more I hear about it, the more I'm like, I need to watch this
that's
right
one of my
now. This would
secrets,
be cathartic.
I've only seen the first 3-4 episodes, and that I haven't actually finished it. It's on my list, and I know Lane Blanc was in the chat earlier. Hi, Lane. Not sure if you're still here. I swear I'll get to it someday. I promise. But even just from its reputation, from seeing the couple of episodes that I've seen, that I remember I watched and was like, oh wow, this is very real. And part of the reason that I put it down at around episode 4 was just it was really heavy, and it was like, okay, I need a little bit of a palate cleanser. And then things got busy on my end, and I forgot to pick it back up. So it's just been on that back burner for ages. But it wasn't because it was bad. It was because it was so good and so real. But you mentioned that you do enjoy darker stuff, whether it be darker music, darker shows. Do you have any favorites? Going back to music for a minute, you mentioned Future Diary was one that you really enjoyed, but are there any others that you feel just scratch that itch?
This is less specific to anime or games, but it is a Japanese symphonic metal band. I really like a lot of albums, but specifically Elysion by Sound Horizon. I'm trying to learn it right now, actually, when I have my singing lessons, because basically a lot of the songs are a mix of rock and opera, and it's a really challenging album, but it's really dark, and it takes a look at a bunch of different relationships, but they're all terrible. Like, to be blunt, any trigger warning you could possibly have probably applies to this musical, but it's really beautifully written, and the musical composition just puts you through like so many emotions. And the final song, the composition is just gut-wrenching. It left me in tears. I love it so much.
Oh my goodness. So, to be clear, is this an album that has consistent themes, or is it an actual stage musical or show?
It's kind of both. I don't know which it started as, but I know that it was also performed as a stage musical. It was mainly one single singer who did everything, and she changed costumes between every song to play everybody.
Oh my goodness.
I know that a lot of people criticized her, and she ended up actually leaving the band afterwards because she was really sick during the performance, so she had a bit of a rough time. But the album itself is really beautiful, and she did an amazing job showing the emotion in every single song. I haven't watched the full stage musical, but I've seen some clips. But just listening to it alone, there's like a lot of ambient sound effects and stuff very subtly put into the songs too. So it kind of almost feels like an audiobook musical, like it was meant to be just sound. And I think that's really nice because the title of the band is just Sound Horizon. And that's kind of what it feels like.
Yeah, that anytime there's a single performer show, that's always, you know, you talk about labors of love. That to do something like that, even if you don't necessarily love it at the outset, that even if you're just, you know, a professional and you got cast as something, okay, I'm going to take this job, that if you are the entire show, you are going to get close to the material one way or another. And by the time someone is performance ready for a single person show, it's almost always going to be something very special. Because even in English, and I don't know how common it is in Japan, I have to assume it is still not very common.
Probably still pretty rare.
Do you think that that's something that you would ever attempt? Would you ever want to do just, you know, as a concert, as a performance, that entire show?
I've been tempted, actually, to run this entire musical on stream solo, but I'm thinking I might, if I can get good enough to do the main character, I'm thinking I might lean towards my concert style and get some people instead of going a little nuts and doing every song, just because of the pure complexity of it. Having a few minutes between some of the harder ones would make a big difference.
That's fair. That's very fair.
Like, I don't remember the actual note for sure, but I think one of the notes that you belt in it is like a G6. So, it's really high.
I don't know what that means. Like I said, don't know choral music that
It sounds like it would break glass.
I was going to say, you say 6 after this, and I know that as the numbers get higher, so does the pitch, and that 6, at least in musicality terms, that's a very high number, so yeah, that's probably a pretty high note. Do you think you would...
I could actually hit it when I practiced, but it was rough.
Do you think you would try to do translation for that if you ever did it?
I was thinking about that, but I think with this one I might not, actually, and instead opt to have subtitles on the bottom of the screen for the entire musical, because you really need to understand the meaning to get the most out of these songs. But there's a lot of like subtle, like every single phrase almost has a dual meaning. So I think it's kind of impossible to do it justice if you wanted to make English lyrics for it, to be honest.
Yeah, that sometimes sometimes you have a wordsmith who is so good in their native language that they make the material untranslatable. That it's sort of a low-hanging fruit here, but if you know Hamilton, Lin-Manuel Miranda wrote double and triple meanings into basically every phrase of that musical, and I'm not sure if you could effectively translate it to any other language. You could almost certainly do it and have it retain its basic meaning, but there's going to be a reduction of depth.
But it would have the basic meaning still, like people would get it, but the depth in everything and what makes it a masterpiece would basically disappear.
Now, on the flip side of this all, you mentioned it, I think once in passing, or if it wasn't you, somebody in chat, that you play flute and that you've done some flute performances. Maybe if not performing and singing the entire concert, that have you ever considered just doing flute accompaniment to different pieces that you've done, your own basic flute performances, but to sort of, be the pit orchestra for a full show like that and try and make a stream out of that?
If it was possible, I think that would be amazing, but I think the sheer amount of work, I would die. I can say, though, I won't say who or what or where or when, but I did get invited to a huge orchestra collab of a song cover, and hopefully if that ends up panning out, I will be doing flute in that, so that'll be something really cool to look forward to.
Ooh, excited to hear about that, because I know virtual orchestras have been a thing even prior to 2020. They certainly had a spike in 2020 for obvious reasons, but they have once again sort of receded, and they still do happen. They are not unheard of, but they are a bit rarer now, and that it's always fun when you can get folks who put that together. And certainly it's not going to be a live performance that you have people send in their recordings and they get spliced together, but even so, when you can get that, and especially if you're able to get a full instrumentation for something, it's always very, very special. Where did you start playing flute? Was that something that you picked up in school, or was that something that, again, sort of along the way or outside of normal school class settings?
Nah, that was just in school. They wanted me to play clarinet, and I said no, and I bought a flute.
I wound up playing trombone because I wanted to play trumpet, but I wanted to join in 7th grade, not 6th grade, which is where middle school started, where I grew up. And the band director said, you can play trumpet if you want to, but you'll have to start in the 6th grade band. But we're actually short trombones in the 7th grade band, so if you pick up trombone, you can be in that band, which is where all your friends are. And I was like, well, I guess I'm playing trombone.
Because you want to be with your friends more than anything. That's kind of what makes music fun, too.
Yeah, and it wound up being the right choice. That there are certain, I don't know why, but I feel like it is a relative consistency that there are a certain level of underlying characteristics for people in different instruments in bands. That, the flutes have their own vibe, the trombones have their own vibe, the saxophones have their own vibe, and for whatever reason, I got lucky in that I very much fit in with the trombones, and I can't imagine having played trumpet now, just because I know the people that I would have met in the trumpet section, while still very fine people, that I know that I got along better with the people in trombone, in low brass, than I probably would have with the trumpet section. So that was just perhaps luck of the draw. I don't know if it's fate, but it worked out.
Because it's always more fun when you vibe with the group.
That was flute something that you played for a really long time throughout school, middle school, high school, perhaps beyond, or was it just a couple years and that you picked it up a bit later after a bit of a hiatus?
I basically played it all throughout school, and then I stopped entirely, and then I started playing it again on stream. It started really bad at first. I just had let's sight read and see if I remember how to play. Very scuffed stream where I couldn't play like anything. I just laughed at myself and squawked the whole stream. But it's slowly been getting better. I can sometimes play songs good now.
How
Slow
complex
songs
is that
only,
for the microphone situation?
Honestly, I have a really sensitive like recording microphone. I just went all out. I was like, I'm gonna record song covers and stuff, right? So I got a really expensive microphone. Well, it's kind of like a medium price, but to me at the time, that was fucking expensive. And I use that for recording. It's very sensitive and works well with high voices, so I was pretty lucky it picks up the flute pretty decent. The gain on it has a very large adjustment, so I can always play it without it being too loud, and it actually works quite good.
That's good.
I kind of am debating though, I hate ASMR, right? Like, I'm one of those people with misophonia. ASMR gives me, like, the bad tingles. Like I want to throw up in fear tingles. I cannot listen to ASMR. But I'd have, like, I'm thinking of getting, someday, because they're expensive, either a dual mic setup with different mics or, like, one of the common ASMR mics, just because I feel like it might be kind of more immersive if I play flute with one of those. Because, like, when you play, you kind of, like, rock back and forth a tiny bit sometimes. I feel like having that added into the left and right channels and headphones for viewers could be a really cool experience.
Ooh. I don't know if I've ever seen that because I think I've only seen 2 people play flute, at least VTubers. I don't know if I've ever seen anyone perform with an ASMR mic with an instrument. Like, I'm trying to think. There might have been... I think I remember someone using kalimba with a ASMR mic, but that is obviously a very soft instrument, something that they were doing more conventional ASMR, but also having kalimba as a redeem. But I don't think I've seen anything in terms of orchestral instruments being used with ASMR microphones, so that'd be really interesting.
Yeah, I just want to see if I might capture the feel of being in the room a bit better than capturing it in mono, you know?
Yeah, for sure. And like you said, even if it's just using a dual microphone setup so you can actually get stereo input, that could end up making for a better experience, because you're right that whether you're playing flute or trombone, that most musicians aren't staying perfectly still, that when you're really feeling the music, you're going to sway side to side, and that, goodness knows, as someone who is in the audience, that when I'm watching an orchestra, if I see someone playing the violin who's just really feeling the music, I'm going to be more engaged as an audience member. I love watching people in the orchestra who aren't super rigid, and some are, that's fine, but more recently, goodness, somebody who prolifically was into it and playing flute. Do you remember Flute Guy from the Game Awards?
Yeah, the Game Awards.
And
I love it.
I went back and I watched just the other day, I think it was the 2017 Game Awards, because I had Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild on the mind and was listening to that. He was there back then, and he was just as into it back then. And for whatever reason, it just so happened that whoever was operating the camera got like one shot of him during that performance, but the camera person for the most recent Game Awards was on that guy for multiple times for extended shots. But he has, in fact, been in that orchestra that has performed at the Game Awards for at least 5 years and has always been this just... I don't know what other way I can describe him as a player, but boisterous in his motions.
Yeah.
That you can tell he's just having a great time, and that was honestly one of the best parts of the Game Awards. Him sort of having his 15 minutes of fame. I remember he posted a cute little video the day afterwards just saying thanks for the support, and it's going to be interesting. I think they're going to have to plan for that this next year and just tell the camera operator, okay, make sure you're getting shots of this guy, and that he's already relatively front and center at certain points if there is a solo, but they're probably going to go out of their way to make sure he has a solo from here on out, because now he's a draw.
Yeah. I feel like too. I'm gonna be honest. I watched the Game Awards with one of my siblings so we could sit there, eat snacks, and make fun of the entire Game Awards. But that one section, like, because my sibling also plays flute, that one section, we actually loved it. We were, like, enamored. It was great.
Yeah, and that's always been one of the highlights anyways, that they always do a medley of the Game of the Year nominees right before the award announcement with a full orchestra. They've had that, like I mentioned, at least since 2017. And they're always very good arrangements, and it's always a highlight that certainly the Game Awards is not a perfect award show. I will still say it is the best we've had by a country mile. It's better than the Spike Game Awards.
It's at least entertaining.
Yeah. The worst that we have on there nowadays is every so often you're going to get a game dev who obviously is just not used to speaking on stage, or we had that one case where I forget who it was, but literally the first award recipient went on for like 7 minutes with their acceptance speech. And it was just, okay, is everything tonight going to be this long? Unfortunately, it wasn't. But, if you grew up back in the day, as much as I hate to say back in the day, but if you remember the Spike Game Awards or just certain things for G4 and that there were other iterations, and Jeff Keighley has been involved with most of them, which is how he got the Game Awards stood up so well, because he's either hosted or produced or been a hand in a lot of these iterations over the decades. And like I said, back in the day they were not as good, and this still, goes back to what I had mentioned earlier about VA work and about game dubs, that it was just the industry being young and them figuring it out, and that a game award show isn't going to match, the Tonys, the Emmys, the Oscars. But what we have now, I think, is at least, it's respectable now. Still can be improved, but best we've had, and that there were some older ones that were just really awkward. Like, if you want a good cringe react stream material, go back and watch like Game Awards stuff from early mid 2000s.
Oh no.
Yeah.
I'm scared.
Maybe that could be a thing for you of just depending on what flute parts they give there, that you could then end up using that for your own streams. Who knows? Is there any song that you've been hoping, planning, wanting to make the time to arrange specifically for flute?
It's less arranging and more one that I really want to learn on flute, but I'm not good enough. Is the song in Xenoblade. I can't remember the name of it. I want to say like Song of Passing, but I don't think that's right.
I sadly do not know much of Xenoblade. I know of it, but have not played any of the games, so...
There's like a flute song in it that's like the flute song in it, and it makes me cry every time, and I want to be able to learn that one. But it has like, you know what I mean by this? It has like an infinite number of grace notes, like all over the place.
Yep. Just lots of flourishes, little embellishments, and certainly a lot of fun for the person performing.
Yeah, between like every single note. And I think it has like 4 or 5 sharps or something like that as the key. And for flute, usually in concert band, it's like 2 or 3 flats.
Yes.
Is the most common. You don't usually have 5 sharps, so my entire brain is just like,
As a trombonist, I hear 5 sharps and I immediately just get scared. And trombone is not meant for sharp.
Trombone play in the same key as flute, right?
Yep, it's a C instrument.
Okay, so you understand my suffering.
Yes.
The entire brain is like, how do I do this?
But at the same time, I feel like at least flute as an instrument sounds better with sharps than trombone. That just higher voices usually sound better with sharps, but either way, that's still going to be an awkward key. I'm sorry, and the chat laughs in B-flat trumpet. Again, that was just beyond my knowledge when it came to music theory and reading music. That I know because the band teacher said at various points, the trombone is a C instrument. I was like, oh, okay, cool. So this means, other people have to translate their keys? Wow, I guess I just got lucky with mine.
Even now, my brain doesn't quite compute that, because I hear, like, a C on mine, and it's like a different note on someone else's. Like, we play the same thing, but I call it a C and they call it something else, and my brain doesn't understand that.
Like,
I'm just like,
wait,
but
why-
aren't they both the C?
Why are you doing all that
I
extra
don't
work?
understand!
What's up with your instrument? Is it broken? Why do you need to do this?
Yeah. I'm gonna be honest. Like, my brain understands that it's a thing, but I don't understand how it's a thing. I still don't get it.
I understand that this is a concept and that certain instruments do different things. I don't know why you couldn't just auto-translate that or have your set beginning point wherever go there. I'm sure there's some logic behind it, but I'm very much in the same boat, Pam, of I just got lucky that I don't need to bother with that crap. So we've been at this for about 2 hours now, and I know you do like to take breaks, usually every couple hours, just to make sure that your voice is fresh and everything. So if you want to take a couple minutes, that I will entertain chat while you are away. So if you need to step away for a couple minutes, just let me know when you are ready to continue. But I guess this will be something of a commercial break for me. So if you are in the chat, first off, thank you so much for being here. And actually, Pam, so what I will do for yours is I will blip your... Oh, that works too, yeah.
Cool. There we go.
Yeah.
Okay, I will run and refill my drink.
Yes. See you in a moment. But again, if you are here in chat, thank you so much for tuning in. This is Vtuber Talk episode number 115. Holy cow, 115. This is something that I do just about once a week. My schedule is very irregular because I try to schedule around my guests. But if you are enjoying and at all interested in potentially seeing more shows like this, that you can just follow here on Twitch or on Twitter. It's Vtuber Talk, both places. And I'm just a guy who likes to talk to people. The whole reason Vtuber Talk came about is we mentioned conventions going away in 2020, and well, I had too much time on my hands because I wasn't going to conventions. Nobody was. And I wanted to do something that sort of exercised the organizer part of my brain, and here we are. And it's been 2.5 years for me now, and it's been a lot of fun, and I'm just very fortunate that so many incredible VTubers have been so generous with their time to be here for me, because goodness knows this show is literally non-existent without the guests, and that Pam, I had been coordinating with her manager for many months, just trying to find a good time in her schedule, because she does so much. She does a lot, everything from the different events that she plans, the streams that she does. She's doing a lot of stuff, obviously, behind the scenes, and that she's traveling all over, racking up points on 2 different airlines. So the fact that we were just finally able to find a time, I was not going to be impatient. It was like, all right, whenever we can make this work, I'm happy, and I'm so happy that we were able to make this happen tonight. I have literally been looking forward to this for months. So big thanks to Pam for being here, and that this is something, if you are a regular of her streams, that taking a short break every couple of hours is not going to be a huge surprise for you. Definitely do recommend checking her out. The links are in the channel panels down at the bottom of the screen. I'm going to give her another shout out here. But like I mentioned, I do recommend following her on YouTube, not just Twitch, because she doesn't stream on Twitch super regularly, but sadly I can't do a YouTube shout out with Twitch integration, so that will have to do for now. But hope you all are enjoying. I know I don't interact too much with chat because I am usually paying very close attention to the guest, but I am still seeing chat, so if you all have particular questions, that you can feel free to throw things in the chat. I cannot promise that I will use every question, but if you throw things out, I might, and certainly if Pam sees something in the chat and she feels compelled to answer, I'm not going to stop her. So if you all want to join in the fun, feel free to do so. I'm really, really happy that you all are here. Hopefully you've been enjoying that. I get the feeling that Pam and I could be at this for another 2 hours if she has the energy, but she was streaming, like I mentioned, for a good 4 hours, touring VCAT. So we'll see how things go. I always want to make sure to take care of my guests, and that if they are getting sleepy, I'd much rather that we end before they start to fade in our dragging, because I never want to have someone on the show who is clearly exhausted or not having a good time we're going to end before we get there. Make sure that leave folks wanting a little bit more, because even if the show ends here tonight, she is, like I said, streaming quite regularly, and she is fantastic. So do be sure to check her out and follow if you haven't followed already. Also, I just realized I missed a follow here a little while ago, actually. So Haruni Shimura, I hope I got that right. Thank you so much for the follow. Hope that you are having a good time. Also, I'm not sure if she's still here. I'm double checking the viewer list. I don't do that very often. No, she did have to leave, but I did see good friend of the channel, Lane Blanc, stopped in earlier. She was actually the very first guest that I ever had on Vtuber Talk way in January 2021, and she has actually collabed with Pam several times, so happy that she was able to make it in, even if only for a little bit. Do appreciate all the interaction in chat. Masanro, I hope I'm getting that right. The emphasis on the right syllables can be tough, but thank you so much for chiming in. It's clear that you are also a band geek, that I don't get to talk band and orchestra and the like with all my guests, so anytime that I have someone who I know has that background, it is very special, because for me growing up from middle school, high school, and college, band was definitely a significant part of my life and social life and free time. So lots of very fond memories. And I think that Pam is ready to return. So welcome on back, Pam.
Sorry.
Ta-da! And we are back.
I'm strict with my breaks.
No, that's good. That you're not the only one that I know who does that. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Meat, but she does something very, very similar. Also, Moriko, Bat at Video Games, every couple hours will do that. So it is a very, very healthy thing. And especially for someone who needs to take care of their voice, that you cannot get sickened with how much you do, that it's better to be safe than sorry. I do this once a week, so I can push myself. And all right, I don't think, fortunately, knock on wood, that I've ever lost my voice after a show, but it's low risk for me anyways, because if I do end up pushing myself, it usually doesn't matter. I'm not going to be streaming the next day, with relatively few exceptions. But for you, do you have anything that you're looking forward to in the near future, whether it be something that is a larger project or even just a game that you've been playing on stream that you're looking forward to getting back to?
I am actually trying a very experimental stream next week. I'm kind of excited and terrified in equal parts. A lot of people have asked me for like voice acting tips, or just being like, hey, I want to do more voice acting, but I'm scared. Like, they want to do a collab, but they're kind of scared to do a big one that I do, where I kind of make them do a bit of a spectacle. So I'm trying to start doing a series of collabs. Well, I say a series, but I'm only doing it again if it goes well. I'm very nervous it won't.
It's the pilot episode that it can become a series.
It's a test. I'm going to have 6 guests on, and I basically have like a Q&A, and then I try to teach them a bit about voice acting and like give them some advice based on what they do, as well as give some general advice, and just try to help steer people into directions that'll make them stronger, and hope that they can learn from it as well as the audience. Because even like I've taken a number of voice classes because I want to get better, and I've also audited a number of them, and it's also really good to learn just by watching other people learn. And I know that classes can be stupidly expensive.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. And that it's a whole thing that I am not an aspiring voice actor. I have a couple friends who are. I have a couple friends who have actually been able to really properly break into voice acting. It's not easy. And classes can be very worthwhile in multiple ways, that not only are classes going to be genuinely good from a teaching, knowledge, and practice standpoint, especially if you have a seasoned voice actor there, because they're going to know the ins and outs, but they also double as networking events, really, that if you do well in those classes and the person who is teaching the class notices you and that you have a good personality and are easy to work with as a student, they might recommend you to a director, or they might offer to do introductions, and that it ends up being that value add. And my guess is that's probably a non-zero factor as to why they can be particularly expensive.
Yeah, for sure. And it takes a lot of time away from the actors and stuff too, and they have to rent a studio to do it. So like, I can see why, but the problem with that is it's not accessible for everyone, right?
Yeah.
And I know that it's not the same doing it on stream. Like, I'm not a professional teacher. Like, I should not be charging. This is why I'm doing it for free. But it's something at least for people, whether they're just VTuber fans who want to hang out and watch it because it's interesting, or people who want to learn and don't have the means to learn in any other way. I feel like it's something where if it works, it's something valuable I could give back to the community. If it doesn't work, we'll just pretend it never happened and move on. But
that's how experimental streams work.
Try.
Everyone tries out different things, and that sometimes they don't work. I am relatively optimistic about this concept that, in general, VTubers and VTuber fans enjoy voice acting, and goodness knows that voice performance is a very big part of VTubing, because obviously you have the model, and that being able to maneuver the model in its own way actually is a very specific type of acting that there isn't a one-to-one training. I would not actually be surprised if there ends up being folks who do classes on just how to most effectively use your VTuber model as a performer. But
they exist in Japan. Niji Sanji runs a training academy for VTubers.
Oh yes, that's right, they do. But goodness knows voice
seen, like, individual coaching type stuff in like the English VTuber community. But I will always tell people this in terms of learning about VTubing. I think genuinely the best way to learn is not really to pay people and learn. I think it's just whether it's starting out with just your voice or starting out with PNG, the best way to learn is to just do it.
Absolutely.
Like, you can always rebrand and have a big debut later, but getting any experience under your belt, that's the best way to learn.
And you already do a fair bit of voice acting content on your channel that I would say probably once a week, and if not once a week, once every 2 weeks at least, that you have a voice acting performance stream, and that it's not a
there
class.
Might be 3 next week.
Oh my goodness. And that you'll do different games. I know that Final Fantasy 14 has been a big one recently, but if memory serves, you've also done several visual novel games where you'll bring on a couple of folks and that you just voice act your way through it. Oh yes, the Nike streams.
Streams are like how I started it actually, because I started. I told chat I wanted to stream Otome games. The first one ended up being kind of a joke, because I didn't know there was a guy version of Nekopara, and chat was like, play Nekopara, and I was like, fine, I promise I'll play Nekopara if there's a boy version, and then unfortunately I found out there was.
Oops, fell into the trap.
And that stream outed me hard as a Fujoshi, and I was like, shit. So then I gave up entirely, and I was like, I'm gonna stream Otome games, fuck it. And
fine.
I just voice acted the
You opened this
protagonist.
Pandora's box, chat. This is your fault.
This is your fault, exactly. I blame you for becoming what I am now.
Or at the very least, giving you the carte blanche approval that, all right, you asked for this, and regret it at your own peril / enjoy. Mostly enjoy, actually.
It made me quite a bit more like comfortable and open on stream, though, I think, so it wasn't a bad thing. Because people have told me this. They like watched my streams before the Catboy stream and after the Catboy stream. They're very different vibes.
I feel like that happens a fair bit, not just for VTubers, but for streamers and content creators in general, that folks are understandably going to start in a bit of a safer place, a bit more reserved place, and that if they find something that works, they're going to continue along with it because success breeds repetition. So doing something different, and goodness knows, going into something niche as you're different can be scary, and just on paper it looks
terrifying.
like and on paper it looks like a bad idea. Why on earth would I stop doing this thing that is already very much working for me, has a wide audience, and instead do something that I haven't done, that my audience isn't going to expect, that is only going to potentially appeal to a fraction of them? That sounds silly. But then
I've had people come in chat and be like, why are you nerfing yourself by streaming this? Ew, why are you streaming this? Or unsubscribe. They'll hate that I stream those games. But the reality is, I don't regret it at all, and I do see them, despite the fact that maybe they have lower viewership. I personally see them as some of my most valuable streams, because if nothing else, I feel so confident and happy with them that I feel like they really leveled up my skills as a VTuber. Since I started doing visual novels more regularly, I've just felt so much more confident and energetic, and I just felt like I became a better streamer through them.
Yeah, and it's always special when chat ends up stumbling into this and requesting this, whether it be the streamer says something sort of offhand of, oh yeah, I would never do this type of stream, and then naturally chat is going to egg them on, or sometimes you get the genuine interest and that whether by luck or just personality, and that you had already perhaps unknowingly cultivated a community of viewership that because your personality was predisposed to a certain genre, that theirs wound up having that overlap, and neither party realized it until it finally came up in conversation, and now you've discovered, oh, this actually just works. Do you recall which the first one? No, wait, you said it was Nekopara, that's right.
No, it was the first one, but it was like kind of a joke stream. I'm trying to think.
What was the first serious one then?
Color Malice was the first
I don't
otome
know
that I
that
played
one.
all the way through. I think it took like 15 streams or something to reach an ending.
Yeah, that
in
scans.
That game. It was long. What I try to do to strike a balance, between what you enjoy and trying not to kill your channel is I'll tend to do the visual novel streams on a day where like I'm already doing another stream. Just that it's kind of like I'm not counting on that for being my views for the day or anything. It's just kind of a bonus that I do for myself, a little self-indulgent, and then I'll have something else paired with it, so that viewers that don't enjoy that at least have something else to watch that day.
No, that's a very practical approach of sort of reducing the risk, so to speak, because goodness knows that as someone who does content creation for their job, that numbers and the general appeal of a stream is going to have a non-zero weight in your mind when you're looking at things. So putting it on a day where you're going to have 2 streams and, like you said, therefore it's not, it doesn't have as much pressure to succeed in a statistics sense. So you're just able to really go in and have it be really a free roll. But like you said, it ends up being then a labor of love, something that you're just going to enjoy, and that you can really go crazy in more ways than one there, that you can experiment with just how you run the stream, how you present yourself, how you perform, and then take those learnings to the other streams. So hearing that Nekopara wound up being a turning point makes a lot of sense. Are there any games that you've been really looking forward to getting to voice act, either just on your own or with others? Because I know you've done a pretty good number now, but naturally there is going to be a very big library, and like you said, they are each going to take a while.
One that I'm always looking forward to is just the new events in Nikkei, because the writing in them is like, okay, I know everyone thinks that it's just like, oh yeah, that's the booty pew pew game and the fan service with gun waifus, but actually the game is so well written. Like the most recent event made most of chat cry.
I remember I tuned into one of those because it wasn't the first one that you did, because I will admit, the first time I saw that you were doing a Nikkei voice acting stream, I thought it was a joke. I thought, okay, they're gonna voice act through the teehee.
I started playing the game as a joke.
But then it kept going, and I at first wasn't sure, okay, maybe the joke just worked, but also at the same time, usually joke streams don't have legs. So maybe there's something here. And I decided to tune into one, and the problem that I had was I tuned in and there was a very emotional scene going on. But because I didn't have the context, because I hadn't watched it, I was like, crap, this is actually really good, but I don't know what's going on. So it wound up sort of losing me just because I couldn't appreciate, but I could but I could tell at a glance, oh wait, this has good writing. And the fact that it is deep enough for me to not know what's going on at a glance is sort of a testament to it actually having depth, and that obviously you and the others were just having a blast and were very much getting into it. That I have to imagine there's plenty of scenes where you all are hamming it up, and I've seen a couple of the other voice acting streams that you've done with that, but it's always fun when you hear about these games that are sort of unexpectedly deep, and even different series that are like that, where, you know, okay, it's a bait and switch in the best way, where the fan service is what gets people in the door, and then psych, it actually has depth.
made me cry more than a lot of other games. I'd probably put it up there as one of the games that's made me cry more than any other, actually. Surprisingly.
That's really cool. And that, so I'm trying to remember how long the game's been around, because it's not new. It's been at least a year or so. Probably more.
It's been around 8 months or something like that, because the 6-month anniversary was a couple months ago.
Oh, wow. I'm just completely off base then.
It's still relatively new, but it kind of fell off quite early, with a lot of creators who started it, probably for the same reason as a joke for the fan service. But I think the people and the creators that ended up sticking around with it are the people that got invested in the events. The game itself is a bit predatory with its gacha, like breaking the 160 wall is notorious. You have to get so many dupes that it's really hard, or you cannot progress in the story.
It is still a gacha game at the end of the day.
Yeah, but the events have a really low wall of entry. So as long as you play for like a month or so, you can complete any event, really. And the writing in the events is actually fantastic. Like, I don't even feel like I'm losing out not doing the main story, because I'm so behind. But I'm just, like, living for the events.
That's really neat. And I know that that's a design that a bunch of other games have used. I, very fortunately, perhaps, have never been bitten by the gacha bug. So I've never really been into Fate or, Grand Blue or any of those gacha games. And I have some friends that are, and I do know that there actually is that depth there. And I know whenever Fate has an event that one of my friends, I'll usually see a bunch of screenshots from their playthroughs, because they will go through and even catalog it, because they want to be able to just go back and reread it, because they know it's a temporary event. But that they actually do put that effort into those events, and it's not just total throwaways.
That's part of why I like voice acting them too, because it kind of like, for starters, the game has full voice acting outside of the events, right? And the English dub is actually incredible. It's really well done, and one of the best dubs I've heard. So it just kind of feels sad, like you're missing out on that experience when you do the events. So I was like, I'm just gonna add the voice acting and do it myself. And I'm really passionate for the events. For some other voice acting streams, sometimes I'll just go for whoever's fun and I want to hang out with. But for this one, I'm always really picky. I'll have a whole list of people with voice samples and demos on like a Google Doc.
You're more actively casting this one.
Yeah! I'll go through and like listen to everything, and I'll be like, okay, who do I think I would choose to like cast in this role if I was really casting it? And then I'll ask those people, and then it turns out really cool. We just kind of go as if we were actually dubbing it.
Yeah,
that's really fun.
That I've done that just on a lark with a couple of friends sometimes, that we'll just on our own voice act our way through a game. It's always really fun, because not only are you usually just, playing and enjoying the acting in its own very low stress situation, but then sometimes you end up stumbling into like either inside jokes or things that depending on how loose you're willing to play with your read through of things, that sometimes things will get added to characters, or you decide, all right, this character has a certain accent, or that you as an actor will sometimes add something to the performance. Are there any instances in yours where just you've taken what is on the screen in the script and either just cranked it up to 11 or perhaps added your own embellishments?
Yeah, sometimes we will do that if we feel like, because what I tell everyone, I'm like, we're not going to be mimicking the original English dub. We're going to do our own version and have fun with it. Sometimes we end up going a bit more. Sometimes Lane is actually a good example. She added a few words sometimes to the character I got her to do, and it added so much. And her take on her was very different than the original, but I actually ended up liking her take better.
And that's part of the fun as well, just being able to say, okay, I see what the original actor did here, and maybe I'll use that as a starting point, but also, hey, this is my performance. I'm going to do maybe something completely different. Are there any performances?
Probably the best example of when I went really ham with it, one of the characters looks like she's 5 years old, but like her voice sounds older. And she has a 30-minute or so bonus story where she's basically crying for half of it and being a total brat. Like crying to try to get herself out of trouble, not crying because she's sad.
It's not an
and
emotional,
I just went full ham. No. I recorded the whole thing and it was just like, it was really fun.
Are there any performances that you're particularly proud of just as an actor, that whether it's one where you played it pretty straight to the script or one that you added your own embellishments, but that you just feel you really put in a solid performance?
I feel like if I had to pick one out of all the streams I did, that's the best example. Either if you're looking for like comedy voice, probably the one I just said, which would be Ray's Bond story, where I did all the whining and screaming and crap. In terms of like actual emotion and getting into it, I'm pretty proud of when I did Dorothy's Bond story. It was based on the 6-month anniversary event, actually. It kind of added to that. But this one was just a story that didn't have voice acting. I didn't copy the original, but I kind of did something similar-ish. I had voice acted all the characters in it, and it's really some deep stuff going on in there, and I was pretty proud of how it turned out.
I guess that actually hops back to earlier when we were talking about single-person plays, that while you do bring on others and sometimes have a small cast to perform things, that you have done certain streams where it is just you and that you are playing every part.
Yeah.
Are there any that have been particularly challenging for you, that, just you, whether it's something that felt more outside your normal range, or that maybe, I don't know, either the script was just very complex? Are there any that you recall being that challenge and that you were able to, get through that?
Final Fantasy XIV, every stream, there's too many middle-aged men. I can't do it. I can't do it. I can only make so many characters jokes like Goofy or like Mickey Mouse until I just can't do it anymore.
Oh, yeah, I hadn't even thought of just the good old fallback of, okay, I'm going to have this character be some other iconic character.
Yeah. I cannot. I'm sorry, but I've gotten the mommy voice down pat over like streaming practice. I can do mature women now. I can do old women now, but men is not happening.
Yeah, just anytime that you are naturally moving farther and farther away from what your actual register is, that's when complexity is gonna really get challenging, because you're already pushing your voice in an unnatural way, and then trying to add depth or variation when it's already being pushed in an unnatural way. The sheer number of options that you have tonally becomes more limited.
Quite a bit, yeah.
Yeah, that in the cases where I've done that with friends, certainly I know whenever I have to play, a younger girl, that, okay, I can have my voice go higher, but there's only so many different ways I can do this.
Yeah. Me just when I have to do the old man voice, it's just like, I don't know, this thing all the time. Like, I can't.
But that comes with the territory, and that sometimes that can be where you can sort of bake in either a bit more comedy if the scene is going to lend itself to it, or just, all right, you do your best with what you got, and hey, it's a fun stream, that there is no pressure, and even if you can't necessarily give a super inspired performance for every single character, that's fine.
Exactly.
Are there any...
that's why real projects have more than one actor. It's fine.
Yep, that's why single-person plays and musicals are relative rarities, because unless you are only having them play a single part, which then it's just difficult to write for, but if you're actually having someone do a full cast, that's difficult. Well, that's actually an entirely separate Japanese performance art called Rakugo, but that's a very separate thing.
And that's one thing I've always wanted to see, but don't think I've ever seen, a Rakugo VTuber. I feel like the genres would mix so well.
Yeah.
I just want to see a Rakugo VTuber.
I do know a VTuber who has done Rakugo, Kongo. Kongo Kotetsu. I almost said, no, it's not Kotetsu. I'm blanking on his last name, and I feel very bad. But he was actually on the show just about a month ago, and he did a short Rakugo performance here, and it was very, very good.
Nice.
That is not his primary content. Most of what he does is just chatting and talking in his own way, but that he does have a good number of Rakugo performances memorized, and that he will every so often do one of those, even if it's not his bread and butter per se. But I do agree that the natural overlap with Japanese culture that we have in VTubing does kind of surprise me that we haven't had someone make that their mainstay. And I think that's just
Yeah.
sort of to show how niche it is, even within Japanese culture nowadays. That
Yeah. Because it's more of a traditional art. Like,
Mhm.
it's not something that you see as often anymore. It's probably around the same as like kabuki or do. It's like
yeah,
people appreciate the tradition of it, but not a lot of people really do it necessarily.
yeah. Have you seen the anime Shorengoku Rakugo Shinju?
I watched part of it and then I forgot to finish it.
It,
I think I saw like 2 episodes.
that's a series that I loved, and it is a very dense, dramatic show. That is it is an incredible show to watch. It is not a beginner anime, I will say that much. That
Yeah.
you need to
I've heard
understand.
it's really good though.
I don't think I have ever heard of anyone who has seen the complete series say that it is anything less than above average.
Mm-hmm.
And that most will just say that it is an outright masterclass. And it is one that I look at and say, this will never be dubbed. Because
No, it couldn't be.
you just
It
can't.
could be, but like it would not do it justice. All the cultural significance would just be lost.
Yeah. We were talking about localization and translation and how some things just lose that depth
No.
and that it won't work outside of the native language. And that is one. And that while there are plenty of individual Rakugo performances, and I think that Rakugo itself as an art form is completely viable in English. That specific
Yeah.
series
I've
and the
seen
way that
English Rakugo.
Yeah, and Kongo's
I've seen
performance
people
was English as
traveling
well.
in school that did it.
Ooh, traveling in school? I don't think I've ever heard of that. At least not in the U.S.
There was a guy that did Rakugo that traveled, and he came to my school, and I remember it. It was really, really cool.
Ooh.
He does a lot of performances internationally in English. So there are people who do it in English. It's not as common, but most of them have trained in Japan. Like, it's often foreigners that really are interested, and they'll go to Japan and train, and then they'll go spread it in their own native languages.
Yeah,
There are a few out there.
definitely.
I should find him and be like, yo, you should become a VTuber.
Yeah.
You'd be famous.
And that while individual Rakugo performances certainly can be translated, that full series wouldn't, I think, translate as a whole very well. But Rakugo is a
I
really
think it's
cool
hard
art
enough
form.
to subtitle, but like
Oh, yeah.
the problem with dubbing too is then you don't only have to have a meaning that matches, you have to match the lip flaps. It's the combination of those two things. You take it away from like, one, it's not the original language anymore. Two, now it has to match the timing. By the time you manage to pull off both of those things, it's too far gone.
Yeah, but it is a very cool art form, and that even if you aren't necessarily going to watch the anime, that I definitely recommend for anyone out there in chat who might not have heard of Rakugo before. At least look it up on YouTube, get a sense for it, that it is something that is very distinctly Japanese, and that the concept in and of itself is relatively simple, that it is just a single person performance. No real set, that they might have a fan that they use as a prop or make some basic noises, but it is very much an exercise in pure acting and
storytelling.
just storytelling and a bit of minimalism. Yeah, that definitely a fun one. That heck, maybe that would be something for the charity marathon. That I'm always trying to think of what are good, either stretch goals or redeems. And maybe one thing I'll do is look up a Rakugo script, and that if we raise X amount of money, that I will perform that live or something. That could be something.
Do it.
Are there any types of performances that you haven't done? That obviously you've done singing, you've done voice acting, you've done flute. Is there a type of performance that you have not done yet that you want to do someday, even if you aren't confident with it yet, that, somewhere down the line that you hope to be able to do?
There is one thing that I honestly wanted to learn this so many times, and the amount of times I almost tried, but I just can't. I would really love to be able to do ballet, but like, I'm so clumsy I would actually die. And 2, I have issues with my ankles, so I would actually die.
Ooh,
But
ooh.
in a perfect world, if I could, I would really love to try to do like ballet and somehow do that with full body tracking. Like I can't, but in theory, if I could, it would be really cool.
I was going to say, well, motion capture is getting more accessible for VTubers, that you are getting different products like Mocapi, which is, no longer $1,000 specialty rig, and that I think it's going to be really interesting to see more and more VTubers get into 3D and tracking as this technology becomes more accessible. But if you just have problems with your ankles, then yeah, it's a bit of a non-starter.
I can cheat it though. I can like find a friend that does ballet and be like, "Can you wear these while I talk?" Then it's technically me. In my digital form, this is the true me. So if it's someone else's physical body, it doesn't matter because what matters is my digital form.
Or maybe
you guys will never know.
Maybe you get into animation and that you rig and animate a ballet scene, and therefore you have created this ballet performance.
I've created it from scratch myself. It's me doing ballet with my hands instead.
Well, maybe you could do flute accompaniment to ballet. There's the fallback.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. The whole reason I wanted to do ballet is just because I really enjoyed Princess Tutu.
That's one of those classics that I haven't seen, but I know it is.
It's amazing.
I know it's a classic.
It's not super dark in terms of like the plot, but the colors at times and stuff get really dark. It's kind of like, it feels like a children's fairy tale, but like not Disney, like a Don Bluth one or something.
Yeah,
it has kind of those vibes.
Closer to, Grimm's fairy tales.
Yeah, I quite enjoyed it.
Now we have a question in the chat. What is your opinion on the social economics of America? Or do you agree that cheeseburgers work well with fries? And the reason that I am accepting this question is because it actually does tangentially relate to something broader with you, Pam, and is that you have a self-admitted unorthodox taste in food.
Superior taste in food.
Yes. My apologies. Superior taste in food. So, fine. We will start with Tankaroo 3048's question. Cheeseburgers and fries.
I don't like cheeseburgers, but I like fries.
Pam, did we just become best friends? Because I don't like cheeseburgers either, and I feel like we
Thank
are in
God,
such
they're
the minority.
disgusting.
I don't really like melty cheese. That I don't really enjoy mac and cheese.
Period. Cheese is nasty. You know what else is nasty? Tomatoes and ketchup, which is also in cheeseburgers. Another reason to hate.
Like, Pam, I think we just became like foodie best friends.
Thank you. Finally, someone who understands my taste in food.
The only time that I sometimes enjoy ketchup is with fries, but like it has to be just dipped a little bit. I don't like ketchup on my burger. I don't really like tomato-based soups. Tomatoes have a weird slimy consistency. I just do not care for them.
Gross.
Yeah, like I don't care for V8 shakes. I will just pass on that flavor profile. Thank you very much. And yeah, for cheese,
I found a hack though to get like a similar-ish flavor profile that's good instead of nasty. If you take like pureed pumpkin, and especially if you get like a Cinderella or a Gerardale pumpkin, because instead of how pumpkins are kind of stringy.
Yeah.
Those ones are buttery. They have a buttery texture. Like if you bake them, it just melts in your mouth. So those ones puree really nice into sauces. If you mix that with a bit of red pepper, you can replace tomato sauce in basically anything, and then it's not shit.
It's really fascinating how pumpkin for the month of October becomes the most overused flavor profile, and then outside of that month, it is just a completely foreign substance, and even within October, it is really only used within the niche mostly of sweets, that it is not normally used for its savory properties. But pumpkin is it does have naturally sweet tastes to it, but it is not like a sweet food, that it is a balance.
It's so good to use as like a vegetable in cooking. Like if people don't think about it, but like curry, like having pumpkin chunks in curry, amazing. Roasting like pumpkin fries, amazing.
Have you ever had
such
pumpkin
a good
butter?
savory food. I think wait, you mean like the spread that you can put on
Yes.
cookies or bread?
Yes.
I think I've made it. Yeah, yeah. I didn't use a recipe though. I just kind of made it to see if it would work. So
Yeah,
I don't think mine's authentic.
I've only ever had pumpkin butter as something that was already in a jar from a farmer's market, but that it hits that sweet savory balance, something that even if you're just putting it on toast, something really, really basic, that it's really nice and that...
I like putting it on coffee-flavored cookies.
Ooh, okay, because obviously, pumpkin spice coffee is sort of the quintessential American use of pumpkin to the point where it's a full-on stereotype. But
That and pie.
yes, but to use it on coffee cookies specifically, that's interesting. Is that
Sometimes
something?
I'll make like pumpkin loaf as well, like instead of banana bread, just pumpkin loaf.
Ooh.
And I'll put like a tiny bit of espresso in it to add to the flavor profile. It's good.
Ooh, I've had pumpkin bread
And use
before.
almond flour instead of like flour, because then almond flour, the nutty flavor is really good with the pumpkin.
I've had pumpkin bread before, never with espresso mixed in or with almond flour, but I can understand conceptually why those would be good when paired together. Is cooking and baking something that you taught yourself, or is that something that you were taught growing up?
It's very much something I taught myself, combination of like health issues and being picky. There's a lot of things I either can't or don't eat. So I ended up being like, if I want to eat anything that's good, I have to make it myself. So I learned how to do stuff the way I like it, so people are often very surprised. Like I'll tell them what's in it and they're like, and then I give them a bite and they're like, But the downside of being self-taught and being a little more experimental. Have you seen Food Wars?
Yes. Oh, I have
I'm
rants
a little
about
bit
Food
like
Wars.
Soma. I'm a little bit like Soma in the way that like it's a bit 50-50 if my experiments are the best thing you'll ever eat and you'll have a foodgasm, or if you'll just
Or
die.
if it's just going to be terrible. Is it going to be the peanut butter with squid? But at the same time, I can
I'm
kind of
really
understand.
stubborn. I don't want to waste food, so I eat the whole thing even if it's bad.
Yeah. My very abbreviated rant about Food Wars, it falls... Actually, this is very easy. It falls in the Nikkei category of it is a bait and switch series where it is known prolifically for its fan service, but in actuality, it's just an incredibly well-written show that I started watching it because I was really stressed one weekend, and I literally said to myself, I want to find the dumbest show possible just to turn off my brain right now. And I had remembered that Food Wars Season 2 had just aired, so I went and found Season 1, watched the first episode. I blinked, and then I was on episode 6.
Yeah. I didn't watch it, admittedly, but I read most of the manga. I need to catch up, but I really enjoyed it. Like, I was surprised at how engaging it actually was. Like, you think it's just there for the fan service, but I was really invested in all the recipes and stuff. I even tried cooking half of them.
My big observation on it and why I think it is so good and what it does so differently compared to other fan service type shows is it uses fan service literally as the spice of the show, because the fan service happens at a very specific time while people are eating. When it is exposition and otherwise, what are you going to show? People chewing. That's very boring. They use it as filler when they don't have the major plot at play, when they are trying to accentuate, spice up what would otherwise be the most mundane part of the show, but something that is incredibly vital for a cooking show, the actual act of tasting. But it's all in headspace. Well, not all in headspace, vast majority in headspace. And that once that scene is over, we resume with our plot uninterrupted, with a couple of exceptions, admittedly. But I think that's what it does, because there's so many other series that shoehorn in fan service, and then we need to actually get the plot back on track because the characters are IRL reacting to it. But if it's just in headspace, we're able to move along.
It's really well calculated in that way. It's probably one of the better examples I can think of a show having somewhat heavy fan service, while also being, like, tolerable for people who don't like fan service, because the way it's done just feels so natural.
Yep, and that is very much me, that I do not care for fan service, generally speaking, but like I said, that one just did it right. Also, Requiem77 in the chat says that your matcha carrot cake was inspired, and that's one that goodness knows, matcha is a flavor profile that I discovered via being an anime fan and one that I love and frequently tell people who don't know anime or Japanese culture, just, if you ever see this green thing called matcha, if you're at a Japanese market or something, try it. I don't know how to describe the taste, but it is sweet and it is subtle and it is very, very good. And I wish it was something that we had more frequently in American cooking. I think it is a really cool flavor that is just very different.
Admittedly, in my cake, I may have used some questionable ingredients though.
How questionable are we talking?
What did I use that day? I'm trying to remember. I made it up on the spot, right? I just dug through my kitchen.
They say it was inspired and amazing. So
my mom has some really bad allergies, right? So I was trying to make her. She was really sad she couldn't have any treats. I can't remember when it was. If it was Easter or her birthday or something. I remember there was a reason. I think it was Easter because it was a carrot. She thought she couldn't have any treats because she can't have anything that's not vegan, and she is gluten-free, and this is all because of allergies, right? So she'll get really sick. She can't just cheat. So I was like, I'm gonna make her a treat. And I had to not use any flour, so it was all almond flour. I couldn't use any eggs, so I just used flaxseed water paste. I put bourbon in it. I don't remember why. I just did.
Why not? That's the question. Why not?
And I was like whiskey extract, actually, not bourbon. I think it was whiskey extract. And then I didn't feel like cutting carrots or blending them. I was lazy, so I bought 2 cans of carrot baby food. And I put it in
because Requiem mentions baby food puree, so there you go.
Yeah. And then I wanted to make, because the cake pan was in the shape of a carrot, right? So that was all orange because it was like the carrot shape. But then I also didn't use sugar. I used xylitol, which is the notorious sweetener in the Haribo gummy bears. If you've ever read those reviews. So you just eat it in moderation and you're fine. You don't eat the whole cake at once. And I wanted, because it was in the shape of a carrot, the carrot part was orange, and then I wanted the leafy part to look green. So I put 6 packs of matcha in part of the batter, and I used that for the leafy part.
No, that makes sense. Oh, that
sounded really weird.
No, that sounds really
so
good.
Bad, but it was really good. Oh, I remember the other reason it got kind of weird. I was curious about making it moister, so this was the experiment part, right? I mixed the almond flour with mochi flour.
Okay, I'm admittedly not familiar with mochi flour,
weird.
But I know that different types of flours have different moisture levels. So
have you ever had mochi or daifuku?
Yes, yeah. That it,
So it kind of has the texture of an earlobe or something, right?
Yeah, it's
so
very
that
gummy.
mixed with the almond flour kind of made the whole cake a little bit instead of cakey, it's kind of gummy or weird or like fudge, but it's soft. I don't know how to describe it.
No, I can
really
imagine.
Moist though.
Yeah.
It was surprisingly good though. It looked raw. I put the knife in it and it came out and it was just cake liquid all over it. And I was like, oh no. But I ate it anyway because it was burning on the top, so I couldn't cook it anymore. And I realized later that it was just soft from the mochi. And the mochi was what was sticking to the knife, too. And it was actually so good, my mom cried when she was eating it. And then she accidentally did not... I say accidentally. She very purposefully did not care about the gummy bear sweetener, and she ate the whole thing. Sure, her stomach was not happy, but she said her taste buds were happy.
Oh, that's awesome. And just, goodness knows, I'm a big fan of the phrase restrictions breed creativity, and that seems to be the case here of just, you had the limitations of, all right, this is the list of all the allergies. These are the things I absolutely cannot use. Are a lot of these things the staples of baking? Yes, fine.
Yep.
We'll find something else, and that you found those creative solutions, and even if they were a bit unconventional, you were still able to put together something that worked. Dozing Chance as cobweb cake? I'm not sure if that's another specific creation or...
I don't know what that means. Is a cobweb cake a type of cake? Or is that because maybe the mochi was sticking to the knife and making kind of cobwebbies?
Are there any other particular creations that you are proud of? Or ones that you...
My pizza! Chad always shames me for it, but I always smell pizza, right? And I crave it. I'm like, pizza smell, but I hate half the ingredients on pizza. Like, that's a no-go for me.
Pizza for me is very much the exception to my rules, that it is the one time that I enjoy cheese and is the one time that I enjoy tomato. I don't
always wanted it to be an exception, but I always end up trying it anyway. I'm like, you know what smells good? Maybe I'll like it today, and then I have 2 bites and I'm disappointed.
I don't know why it is able to evade things for me. That it might be the consistency of cheese on pizza, since it is more congealed and it's not gooey, that it avoids that, and just the general taste is different enough, savory enough from what you normally have in tomato and cheese that it works for me. I can't do like extra cheese pizzas, or there are a couple ones where it's just like I can't do Chicago pizza usually, where it's like a 1/4 inch of cheese and tomato sauce.
I would die.
Thin pizza is usually better, but I can definitely understand how that still for you would not work, because like I said, I don't know why it does work for me, that under all the rules that we have laid down previously, yeah, this is something that by all rights is not going to be enjoyable for you, so you have to find your own solution.
I got really bored one day, and I bought a Cinderella pumpkin. If you look those up, they're like 50-centimeter pumpkins. They're like massive beasts. They're actually ones people buy for decorations, right? And
Makes sense
they're
with
really
the name.
deep orange. Yeah, and I was kind of curious. I was like, can I eat this? So I looked on Google, and I was like, you can eat it. So I was like, okay, cool. So I think I had to literally use like a chainsaw to open it. Like, it was fucking huge.
Whoa, hold on, wait, pause. You had access to a chainsaw.
Yeah.
Okay,
I live
slightly
near
terrifying.
lots of trees. They gotta sometimes, you know, a branch falls on the house or whatever.
I
it's
guess,
gotta
yeah.
go.
Like, that could be a stream of just chainsawing a pumpkin.
I was talking to some of my underlings once about there was a really bad storm, and they were telling me I should do a chainsaw stream, just take my mic outside and cut down trees.
People have done ASMR, bathtub streams. Why can't you do an ASMR woodcutting stream? That's fine.
I didn't specifically because I thought with my clumsiness there's too much risk of injury.
That's fair.
Yeah. The Cinderella pumpkins are the ones that are really buttery when you bake them. So I thought, like, half the time I just take a fork and squash it, and it turns into, like, pumpkin sauce. Like, you don't even have to blend it. You can puree it with your hands. And I was like, I wonder if I can make pizza sauce with this. So I used a regular pizza crust that I bought frozen, like, dough. And then I put on the sauce. It's usually a mix of Cinderella pumpkin when it's available in season, red pepper, garlic or shallots. I prefer fresh shallots when I can get them. A bit of black pepper, soy sauce, a bit of olive oil. I try to limit my sugar just because it messes up my voice, so I'll use stevia, but you could easily use like sugar or meading. Sometimes I'll put a tiny bit of sake, sometimes I don't. I'll blend that all up, and that's the sauce. And then on top of it, I'll put cremini mushrooms, and I'll usually put bacon, but I buy like an expensive bacon that's soaked in maple syrup. So I'll put that in little bits all over it, and then I'll put an absolute shit ton of pepperoni, and instead of cheese I put fried onion, and it actually tastes so good. Now I can have pizza too, and I'm happy.
Oh, that sounds... There weren't any ingredients here that seemed to conflict with each other, that it's...
Exactly.
That you have your replacement for the tomato sauce in the pumpkin. You don't quite have a one-to-one replacement for the cheese here, and sort of just skip straight to the toppings.
It looks like it in this case. It's more like a visual that the fried onion kind of looks like cheese, but it doesn't taste or feel like it.
Yeah, that's it. Because, I have folks in my family that can't eat cheese, so they will just actually have to just get pizza, and that they will, from a normal pizza place, say, I would like pizza, this topping, this topping, this topping, no cheese. And that they will just eat it with the tomato sauce, and that's kind of what they have to do. And that, in your case, you just put on a couple extra toppings to sort of compensate for the lack of cheese.
Yeah.
Are there any other...
It ends up being really good.
what is the most unusual topping that, even you might say, all right, this is a bit weird. It's better than you think, but is there one that even you perhaps questioned as you were first trying it?
One for me, this is weird because it's kind of a normal thing. Shredded chicken on pizza.
Okay,
I really
specifically
wanted
shredded
to like
chicken,
it.
though.
Yeah. To be fair, I might have put too much. I really wanted to like it, but it ended up absorbing a lot of the moisture from the sauce when it was baking, and then the whole pizza was like dry. Because those chicken breast is just too dry.
Okay, because I was going to say that I hadn't even thought of the potential of it doing that, and you mentioned all these other meats and ingredients, and I guess I can understand why something that is greasier like pepperoni or bacon isn't going to absorb it. I could see mushroom potentially being at risk, but it's still different from chicken breast, which might end up doing that.
Amount too.
That's such a. It's an oddball situation there because you normally think, all right, it's just another meat on the pizza. Why would it behave differently? But the fact that it has this very unique property, I can see where that would go wrong.
Yeah. I feel like other than that, the weirdest thing I've ever seen on pizza, I will never try any of these 3 things on pizza. I've seen them mostly from pizza from either Hong Kong or Japan, is corn, mayonnaise, and boba pearls.
I've seen corn on pizza. You can even find that occasionally in the U.S. I don't think it's an outrageous thing. It's another vegetable. I'm not necessarily saying it's something I'm eager to put on my pizza. I can understand conceptually. Boba pearls, on the other, just that. If you're making a dessert pizza, have you ever had dessert pizza?
Yeah. Like ice cream pizza and stuff.
Yeah, or just, that you have flat, either pastry dough and then, chocolate spread, M&Ms or gummy worms or whatever sweets and candy are the toppings, and there you go. I could see putting boba pearls on something like that because I usually associate it with a sweeter flavor profile in general, but not on a savory pizza. And then... What was the second one? Whatever it was the one that threw me for the greatest. Yeah, mayonnaise. Mayonnaise in general, I do not understand.
I hate it.
Just
it's not
period.
allowed.
Yeah,
it's illegal.
Doesn't matter that it is mayonnaise on pizza. It is the mere existence of mayonnaise that
it's repulsive.
Yeah, it's just no.
That's like egg, but then you put vinegar and ruin it. Why would you do that to a perfectly good egg?
And that it's this weird, really goopy consistency, and that. There's so many good ways to make a spread and to use egg, like you said, and that this is just sort of, this is the ultimate game bad ending. This is the worst possible solution. That the egg had so much potential. It could have been anything, and you made it mayonnaise. Why would you do that?
I don't know what it is about the flavor. It's like either that it's too rich or something. I don't know. Like, people have tried to trick me before by not telling me mayo was in something, right? I can always tell. Like, I will just gag.
Oh, yeah.
I will literally gag on it.
It is not a subtle flavor.
No.
And I feel like disliking mayonnaise, of all the things we've discussed, that's one of that's, I think, a more common sentiment. And most people have a very strong opinion on mayonnaise one way or another. That it's just...
Yeah, people love it or hate it.
But, yeah. Dozen-Chance mentions Japanese mayonnaise. I'm not sure of the difference between the two.
It's no different to me. I bit into a chicken sandwich in Japan that had Japanese mayo. I still puked. I did not know it was in there. I was bamboozled.
Yeah,
exactly. You can also get food poisoning from it, so why? Why would you do that to yourself?
There's no upside to this.
No.
Do you have any favorite recipes that you've made, whether it be, in a more conventional sense where it's just, all right, I followed the recipe on the box, or anything that is, whether it be one of your more unique ones that just if I were to ask you, all right, make me your best dish right now, what is your best dish?
There's two that actually, there's three that I've gotten pretty good at. Oh, actually, I'm gonna brag a bit. There's four that I'm
Please.
pretty good at. One of them that I make every holiday is actually the gotcha pork roast from Food Wars. I'm really good at making that shit.
Ooh. It's been a minute. I think I remember what the gotcha pork roast is, but please remind me, and for anyone in chat who might not know.
It's like, he had to do a shokugeki using meat, but the only meat they had was bacon. So the inside of it is like mashed potato.
Oh, yes, this one.
Depending on the recipe, it's a little different. I changed it up a little bit from the official one. So inside it, I'll put like mashed potatoes, king oyster mushrooms, and I'll put cauliflower that's like cut up to the size of rice. And I'll mix that all together. And then I cover it in bacon. And then I'll use like a sweet red wine sauce. It's really, really good.
And the main thing about this particular dish is that you let the juices from the bacon really seep into the mashed potatoes, that it ends up just going through all the other ingredients, and that instead of draining away all of that oil and other grease, that it actually adds to the flavor profile and gets absorbed by the other things. So the bacon itself ends up being crispier just because it's going to these other places.
Yeah, it's probably like heart attack in a meal, but it's so
almost
delicious,
certainly.
I don't care. It's so good. Another couple that I'm really good at are actually from the Final Fantasy XIV cookbook. There's like a chestnut soup that has actually some ingredients I usually don't like in it. It ended up turning out really good. It kind of tastes like a bowl of gravy, but it's soup, and there's no meat in it, and I really like that. I also like the coffee biscuits recipe. I'm quite good at making that one. And pork kakuni. That's like slowly cooked pork belly that you cook for like 3 hours. I don't eat a lot of pork in general, but that recipe, like I made it for my dad too, and there's a lot of stuff in it he doesn't usually like, and the next day he's like, can you make that again?
Always a good sign when somebody says, hey, do that again. So that was 2. You mentioned there were 4.
Oh, I think that was 4 of them.
Wait, sorry. Oh, wait, no, wait, sorry. No, wait, yes. I'm miscounting. Yes.
All good.
Yeah. Now I'm trying to think, like, I'm not very good at cooking. If you give me ingredients and give me a recipe that I can follow the recipe pretty well. There was a very short time where I was interested in cooking and potentially even pursuing it as either a deeper hobby or perhaps even a job. And I realized very quickly that I didn't have the patience for the ingredient assembly, that it was just so much work going to the grocery store, finding all the different things, measuring out all the different things, and that I enjoyed...
And expensive!
That I enjoyed the act of actually cooking, that if, you know, most cooking shows are going to have all this stuff already even if not pre-chopped, at least pre-portioned to where you have the right amount of the ingredients, and the ingredients are going to be assembled. But getting everything and then having to portion out and then having to mix it, it just became so much extra time and effort that it sort of took the fun out of it for me. Hello, Ellie and Booster. Yes, it is. Yes, it is the PAM of PlayAsia. But even so, I do still enjoy cooking every now and again. Just it's a fun hobby, and obviously it's one that if you're able to do it not only for yourself but for others, that it is a very rewarding one.
The only downside of when you do it for others, when you're an experimental chef, is
oh yeah.
Sometimes the results are a little less desirable. You know, some people might be scared to try my food now. That's okay, because some people like
weak.
my food a lot.
They're
weak, exactly.
If they aren't going to be able to handle you at your best, then if they don't, if they can't handle you at your worst, they don't deserve you at your best.
Exactly, they don't deserve my masterpieces if they can't eat my questionable food.
Is there any advice that you give to folks of just, all right, this is the one thing of all the crazy things, if you only take one piece of advice from my crazy cooking, just try this?
I think, honestly, the one advice I would say, rather than anything specific, is just don't be afraid to try things. Because sometimes it'll be really bad. But sometimes you might discover like a new favorite thing, and you'll never know if you don't try things. Whether it's like an ingredient you've never tried before, or a combination that sounds weird but you've heard might work. Like, just try things.
Are there any that you've heard from others? The usual foods that you don't enjoy notwithstanding, is there any combination that you've heard and that even you have said, ooh, I don't know about that?
Probably quite a few. I think the easiest would just be like mayo and everything. People keep trying to convince me there's exceptions where I'll like it, and I'm like, no thanks. Or like, trying to think.
Ellie and
It's
Booster
hard, 'cause I
mentioned.
end up liking a lot of weird ones.
Ellie and Booster mentioned
Vanilla
vanilla and
and
fried
fried
rice. Like, I guess vanilla extract or just.
I can see that if you're making the flavor of the fried rice, like maybe if you have some chicken and you're making it a little more sweet, like maybe vanilla and cinnamon and turmeric or something, may not be so bad. Or like maybe a little bit of maple syrup or something.
One of my usual things, and this is a lazy one, that I am unabashedly originally from the state of Maryland, and I am here to say that yes, we put Old Bay on everything, and yes, Old Bay is a legitimately good allspice. That it is something that should be used in moderation, but I think that it is something that everyone should stock in their spice rack, and that it can add a lot with a little, and it is just a very good flavor profile that can go with darn near anything that, you know, I've seen it used in ice cream, and I enjoyed it. I will admit that's a more interesting one, not something that I would necessarily say, oh, you have to try Old Bay ice cream, but...
I can kind of see it, because I've had soy sauce ice cream once, and it was really good, surprisingly.
Did you ever do the classic Pokemon of putting soy sauce in snow?
No!
Do you remember that episode? I hope that it wasn't just a total swing and miss of making a reference. Do you remember that episode? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I didn't see that one, but I need to see this one.
It was one of their winter Christmassy episodes, and Jessie...
I know. I think I missed the winter episode. Like, every time I go through and rewatch the series, I think somehow I missed the winter one, because I've seen pictures from it, but I've never seen it.
Because I know that there was at least one winter episode that didn't make it to the U.S. because it had
It might have been
jinx.
that one. I don't know.
But there was at least one snow-based episode. Maybe it wasn't like a holiday episode, but it was either in the mountains or in a wintry town that Jessie has these fond memories of her mother preparing this smorgasbord of snow just shaped in different things of food with a little bit of soy sauce. And because they were very poor at the time and that she grew up with just not a lot of fancy food, that it was something. So I remember trying that once, and I put in too much soy sauce, and wow, that was not fun.
Oh, no.
Because growing up, I didn't use soy sauce a lot in cooking. It was something that my family happened to have in the cupboard, even if it was used exceedingly rarely. Sorry, I
feel like it might work
I
better
just choked
if
on my
you
own
mix it with... Oh. It might be better if you mix the soy sauce with like a bit of median and then cook it. Kind of like there's a certain type of dango that has like a really sweet soy sauce type sauce. That on ice I can see being really good.
Yeah. No, this was just uneducated 9-10-year-old me not knowing how strong soy sauce is. So I put in what looks to be enough to soak it through because that's what I think is right. And then I take one bite and I nearly gag.
Just pure ball of salt instead of snow.
Yeah. But I swear that's a real thing from one of the Pokemon episodes. I'm not crazy.
I feel like I did think of one kind of weird combination. It's one that I like, but I've never found a single person that was brave enough to try it. I don't do this anymore because I don't have much of a sweet tooth anymore. But I used to dip my fries instead of ketchup and stuff. Like, if I went to McDonald's, I'd ask for their syrup packs from their pancakes, and I'd dip my fries in that.
Okay, I don't think that's too crazy because dipping French toast sticks in syrup is a known thing, and that it's still a starch type of thing where that makes sense, and it's mixing sweet and savory if nothing else.
It's good.
Yeah. That I'm trying to remember. I forget what sweet thing I put on top of mashed potatoes once. Like, it might have been it was some cereal that for some reason, I don't know why, but I was like making a snack for myself. We had some leftover mashed potatoes, and I was just wanting a bit of each, and just sort of on a lark, I was like, what happens if I put a couple of pieces of the cereal on the mashed potatoes? And, if it's not good, whatever, this is really random trying, and that it worked, that the sweet and savory there happened to play well together. Again, not something I'm necessarily going to say, oh, everyone should go putting cereal on their mashed potatoes at every meal, but I can at least vouch and say that it's not awful.
That's good.
I haven't, for me nowadays, a lot of experimentation just comes in the forms of trying different spices and things that I already like, and saying, what happens if I put these two things that I already like together, and in different levels of combination? Are there any spices or ingredients that you just always find that you end up using, and that you combine them with a lot of different things?
I've lately been pretty keen on always mixing miso, ginger, and garlic for flavoring.
And I can see how those would
Good
be
combo.
pretty versatile.
Yeah, and put in a bit of like sesame oil too, and it's just.
And I'm guessing that no cooking classes at any time, that this is either combination of self-taught, learning from family. No.
I wouldn't even say necessarily learning from family. It's more like, I would just hostile takeover of the kitchen.
That's,
And they would just humor me.
that's one of the uses that the rack of knives behind you gets. One of the uses. Oh, now I'm trying to think that. Now I want to just start experimenting more with food just from this conversation, because I'm kind of realizing that I've fallen into my own level of complacency. Like I said, all right, I will experiment with things I already know I like, but I'm a very lazy cook in that way, so I should at least go out of my way. I'm gonna see if I can find some pumpkin maybe, or just even if it's still going to be lazy in the act of cooking, to at least have a different jar or something to experiment with, and at least go in that direction.
And then find some new favorites to add to your staple list.
Yes, and maybe a couple of crazy ones along the way as well. Have you ever considered doing a cooking stream, or have you done a cooking stream? I'm not actually sure.
I've done like a baking stream. I don't think I've ever done like anything using an element right there though. Just due to like my physical setup. I did kind of a cooking stream actually. It was like pre-recorded though, but then we tasted them live on stream with Aka. I made curry, but it was like a meat pie, but the filling was Japanese curry, except I put chocolate in it.
Okay, well, I get this. That's not the craziest thing. I was just the one that had said, cereal, sugary cereal, and mashed potatoes. So chocolate with savory pie. That it, unusual though it may be, I certainly can't say that it is a foreign concept to me, that it's still playing with that combination of flavor profiles. Did it actually turn out good?
It would have if I'd read the chocolate correctly. I stole the idea from Black Butler because they had chocolate curry and I wanted to try it. I thought the bar, it said black chocolate, right? I thought that meant there was no sugar in. So I sweetened it a little bit, just a tiny bit, so that it would have a sweet profile, and then I put in the chocolate. Well, it turned out the chocolate was also sweetened.
Oops.
Because it was a Japanese bar, and I was too lazy to read it. It just said black, so I was like, that's unsweetened. Nope,
not quite. So it wound up being too much, and it overpowered the curry, I imagine.
It was too sweet.
Speaking of Black
It
Butler,
would have been good if I knew that the sweetener level was different. It would have been good. I swear.
speaking of Black
I don't
Butler,
think chat
though,
believes me, but
we just got a new season announced, and it's been like a decade since we had the last one. I didn't watch Black Butler, but I know a lot of folks who really enjoyed that series, so I'm excited for them.
It was definitely definitely a pretty influential one for me, so I'm really excited to have some more of it. Especially because the manga gets really weird and good at points, and I'm excited to see. There's a really cool Spider Girl character. I want to see her animated.
I haven't actually seen the trailer. I've heard about it, but since it's not something I grew up with, I wouldn't really have context. Is it clear if this is picking up where the other series left off? Are they starting at the beginning and going in a more manga-faithful direction, but also replaying things they did in the past?
If you ignore the second season and watch just the first season and the OVAs, it's actually decently faithful to the manga. It looks like it's going to continue after the OVAs.
Okay, so they are going to sort of potentially omit the second season, but continue from everything that was already manga faithful. It's been really cool as an anime fan to see manga faithful remakes happening, and I feel like over the past 3-5 years in particular, we've gotten some pretty high profile ones. That we had Fruits Basket, we had more recently Urusei Yatsura, there was Shaman King. There's been several others, and just there's two that I am desperately hoping we will get that treatment for. One of them is Soul Eater, because it was good, and they caught up to the manga. So what do? You do your own thing. And the ending to Soul Eater wasn't bad, but I know that it goes in other directions, and I would like to see that. Yeah,
that's fair.
The other one for me is Oran.
Yeah!
Like, I'm fingers crossed. I'd really like to see that one continued. I adored that series, and that it was already phenomenal as it is. If we don't get any more, I'm not going to complain with what we have. And, talk about some of your best.
But it'd be cool to see the ending.
Yeah. Are there any series for you that you're hoping will be able to get that type of manga faithful reboot or continuation treatment?
There's two that I'd really like to be either continued. One of them a little more redone. In terms of restarted, maybe I'd really like to see Skip Beat restarted and then kind of continued faithful to the manga. Another one that I really think deserves a season 2 is Yona of the Dawn. It's one of the best I've ever seen, and it just ended.
My little sister loves that series. I have not seen it, but I know that she and many others really enjoyed it. I didn't actually know that it ended in perhaps an awkward fashion, though.
Yeah, it kind of left off at a cliffhanger, but the manga kept going.
Oh, and I just remembered the other big one that was just recently announced, Spice and Wolf.
Oh, yeah! I'm excited about that one.
Yeah. I qualify that one up there, similar to Soul Eater and Nikkei of fan service bait and switch, because for years on end, I did not watch Spice and Wolf because I saw all the promotional art, I saw the different, fan art, and it was always Holo. Usually,
naked wolf girl.
Yep, and it was just like, okay, this is clearly a fan service show. I will pass. And that people kept saying, when they would ask, all right, what type of shows are you into? And I'd say, oh, I like shows with smart people. I like Death Note. I like Code Geass. And people would say, you should watch Spice and Wolf. And I would always sort of have this double take of, you mean the one with the naked wolf girl? Yes, but actually it's economics. And it was after the third or fourth person who told me this that I finally said, okay, people aren't trying to get one over on me, because the first time I wasn't sure if they were just pulling my leg and joking. But then when I got this consistency and from a couple people whose opinion I did trust, I said, okay, fine, I'm just going to go out and, all right, Funimation has the full box set of 2 seasons for $40. Fine, I'm just going to buy it and watch it. And damn, it is in fact just economics, medieval economics, the anime. And the amount of actual fan service, the number of times that Holo is actually undressed is like twice. It's just not there. That it is the ultimate bait and switch of, oh, teehee, sexy wolf girl, psych, it's economics.
Makes you actually think, surprise, weebs, you're in school now.
And it ended with the plot at hand resolved, but didn't complete the main plot, which is getting Holo to her home. So while it ended with, a satisfying enough conclusion, I've always known that the light novels continued, and I'm very excited to hear that they are actually continuing. I'm not sure if it's picking up exactly where it left off or starting from the beginning, but either way, I am more than happy for more economics the anime. I think that
I'm excited for it to have good music too, because I really like the music in the other one.
Oh, Xantharius, thank you so much for the raid. Welcome on in, Raiders. This is Vtuber Talk. I'm Jay. I'm talking with Obake PAM, the CEO of PLAYASIA. It's Xantharius, I hope you had a good stream. Welcome on in, folks. We were just talking about anime and some of the more recent remakes and reboots of older series. I have a couple that I've been looking forward to. Pam has a couple of her own, but I am actually curious. So, I've sort of buried the lead and obviously missed one of the big things, just you being with PLAYASIA, that you are able to, be familiar with and promote a whole bunch of different anime and games. Are there any particular projects or promotions that when they got given to you that you were just like, oh my gosh, I'm getting paid to promote this, I'm getting paid to talk about this thing, and that it was just, slam dunk, I already would have done this anyways, and now you're paying me to do it?
To an extent, that's kind of everything I do, because it's not like I'm given games and it's like, here, promote this. It's more like I will look at whatever games are coming out and whatever, and I'll find stuff that I see that interests me, and I'm like, I'm gonna do this! And so sometimes they're like, yeah, it's encouraged because it's like a cool one for the company, and sometimes it's like, you really don't have to, and I'm like, I'm gonna do it!
Oh, but I will. You do not understand, but I will.
Yeah. Probably the most exciting thing for me, just to realize as a VTuber I could do it, and it kind of ties into the store, because it's one of our really good sellers. Two of them actually, Ghost Trick and the Ace Attorney trilogy. When I found out we had a physical version that worked in English on the Switch, I went ham and I was like, I'm gonna stream this. I went for so many weeks streaming it, and then it kind of fell off a bit, but I kind of want to finish it in December, but because DL6 in December.
Oh, yep. Just Merry Christmas. I have a group chat that someone, like clockwork, midnight on Christmas, every year somebody, and it's kind of a race to who's going to get it first that year, will send the screenshot of, shadowy
I do the
figure.
same.
Just Merry Christmas. Classic. Have you seen the live-action movie of Ace Attorney?
I actually love it.
Yes.
I think it's brilliant.
I think it is one of the best live-action game movie adaptations that has ever been done.
It really is.
It's just
it doesn't
really
take
good.
itself seriously. It's cheesy and hammy, but in a way that it works.
It's
for
representative
the game.
of the game. That they have these moments where, Nick says something really dumb, and everyone in the gallery literally falls off their seats.
It's beautiful. It's incredibly done.
And
I keep meaning to do a watch along of it with my viewers. Maybe in December, because then it would kind of fit. It's gonna be our Christmas movie.
There you go. Yeah, that's a really solid one, and obviously, I actually didn't know that. I legitimately did not know that PLAYASIA had the physical of the original trilogy, and we just had the Apollo Justice trilogy announced for the Switch. So, I'm guessing that you are going to stream that one way or another when it comes out. And if PLAYASIA ends up having a physical copy again, then all the better.
We do.
Oh, so that's already confirmed. That's already confirmed. Well, there you go, folks.
But basically, just getting to and Ghost Trick was another example. Since even before my debut, Ghost Trick was one of my dreams, stuff to play on stream. But where it was DS, that kind of wasn't possible. I'd been looking into for so long how to capture DS, and then when it announced it's coming to Switch, I screamed so loud for the entire direct. I missed the entire trailer for it. I just screamed, and then I was really excited to stream it just so I could relive it.
Yeah, I had not actually heard of Ghost Trick. That it was just a blind spot for me in my gaming knowledge, but so. I'm watching the Nintendo Direct, and that trailer just sort of comes and goes for me, and that I look at it and say, okay, that seems kind of neat, and then I get online afterwards, and I see a whole bunch of people just freaking out over the moon, and I sort of turn my head, okay, this is something. I've obviously missed the memo somehow, but I was really excited to see so many people excited for it, and then learning after that, okay, it's this actually niche but incredibly beloved game. So it's very exciting to see those types of games just as a whole getting brought back, because like we were talking about near the top of the show, usually they did not have big print runs, and that's if they made it to the US at all.
Yeah.
So what actually is the plot of Ghost Trick? That sell me on this one, because I've seen from afar, and I know, I think it begins with you die.
You die, yes. So it starts off and you're dead, and then you can use what's called ghost tricks, right? So there's somebody else that's about to get shot in front of you when you're dead, and you have to prevent them from dying by manipulating the objects in the room around you. Because you can possess objects, only certain ones can do things, and you can only jump certain distances. So basically you have to figure out with the tools available to you, how can you manipulate the space to prevent the person from dying? And then it kind of transfers into a bunch of different situations where you have to prevent different deaths or prevent different things from happening. It's just really unique how you have to manipulate the objects.
Is this real time, or is it more visual novel where you select and then see something play out?
It is in real time, but then when you want to possess something, you can pause time to jump across objects, but then like things still move in real time. So sometimes you have to possess an object at an exact second, or like if you try to activate it, it won't work because it'll be too far away from a person,
or you need to time your jump from one thing to another.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you kind of do have to plan ahead a little bit. It takes a number of tries sometimes with the trickier ones. You kind of have to.
I was going to say, it sounds like
die a few times.
Yeah, it definitely lends itself to iteration and experimentation of, okay, I need to see what all these things do when I possess them, and like you said, try to perfect the timing, because if it is going to have that sensitivity. But that's really cool, and there aren't too many games that have that as a central mechanic.
It is written by the writer as well. The story is really good. It's written by Shu Takumi, who wrote the original Ace Attorney trilogy, which is why a lot of Ace Attorney people are obsessed with
there you
Ghost
go.
Trick.
Yep. Yeah, anytime that
it's
you
the
have
same type of writing.
Yeah, whenever you have that pedigree, whether it be the writer or director, that you're able to see the consistency, or at least the same level of mastery of that genre, and that it is. Even I know it is a mystery game a la Ace Attorney, so I expected it would have something very creative and fun there.
Because the main plot, once you start to learn more about it, like through saving all these other people, you're also trying to solve the mystery of how you died. Because you have amnesia, you don't even know who you are, let alone how you died.
Of course.
So you're trying to figure that out. So it's like a murder mystery, except you're the victim. You got to figure out your own death.
Also, I am Poppy Seeds. Thank you for the follow. Welcome on in. Another game added to the list. And actually, because I just started playing a visual novel recently, Valhalla, which I'd seen around for a while, and I've been really, really enjoying it. So maybe that'll be one that I do after that, because I know, like I said, just so many people had been anticipating the release of Ghost Trick. So about how long is that one?
10 hours. It's not too bad.
Oh, that's not bad at all. That's downright short compared to most.
And it's only one ending, so it's like actually pretty doable.
Yeah, you're not.
There might be a bonus ending, but I think it's just like one section. You don't have to redo the whole game for it.
How would an Obake PAM visual novel end? Like what? That actually, I'll rephrase this. What is the central mechanic of a Obake PAM visual novel?
Probably. It would be similar to a dating sim, but instead of a dating sim, you just have to like trick everyone into working for you. And the main goal is to have all of everyone's money. All everybody's.
Okay, so it's not a business simulator, but it's almost like almost an otome game, even, where you're trying to win over the different parties, and that it has this business twist to it, where you're trying to either negotiate favorable trade terms or execute different marketing strategies. I'm a business geek. I love this type of stuff. So actually, I'm enjoying this game concept. Please let me know when it releases.
Yeah, It's basically, they all think that they're trying to win your heart, but actually you're trying to win their wallets. It's beautiful.
I'm already smelling the anime adaptation. This one, like, I've heard of way
It'll be
crazier
the GOAT
concepts.
of the season.
Yep.
Well, I guess all time, so it would not be the GOAT of the season. It would just be the GOAT.
I mean, we've already had Goat Simulator, but maybe you are running a goat business. We'll have to get back to you on that one, but yeah, is that something that you've ever like thought about or considered? That I know that PlayAsia is not into game development, but
we do publish games, actually.
Yeah, publishing, yes, definitely. But I suppose maybe that's the foray for the company into game development. There you go.
We make the Obake PAM game.
Yes.
We go beyond publishing. This time we're making it from scratch. It's all me. I'm the director and the producer, and I do all the voices, and it's going to be great.
There you go. Coming December 20... Yes. Stay tuned for more updates. Follow Obake PAM on Twitter and Twitch and YouTube and all these other places for more announcements. Definitely upcoming sometime.
Coming. Very, very much. No scam.
No scam. No scam. If you could assemble your... Let's say we are making the Obake PAM game. You're not actually voicing everything, but you can assemble your dream cast. Who are some folks that just... you love their performances in whatever games or anime that they are in? It can be English or Japanese actors.
I'm so bad with names, so I forget his name. But, have you played Three Houses?
I have not. I have not played a Fire Emblem game since
I'm just trying to think
DS.
of what else he'd be in that would be known. Oh god, I don't remember his name. But the guy who voices Dimitri is one of the best actors I've ever heard. Every single performance from him, like everything from his softer scenes to his really emotional scenes, just like, it hits so hard. It's incredible. I'd love to have him in it doing basically anything at all.
Is this the English or the...
English, yeah. And Xanthi, she does a lot of really cute, soft voices, and she's one of the people who can do it really naturally. I'd love to have her be in it as well. Other than that, I would honestly probably try to find a bunch of friends that I voice acted with before and see how many of them I might be able to get on board.
The English voice of Dimitri is Chris Hackney, who has most recently done... He was actually Rauru in Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. I'm sort of just scrolling through, seeing if there's any other particularly notable ones, or at least ones that I recognize. He's been in a lot of stuff. He was Kun in Tower of God, which I was kind of sad never got a second season. Oh, Avery in Pokemon Twilight Wing. So, but he's been around. So clearly there are others, including casting directors, who do appreciate his performances.
He's one of the types where, like, most of his voices sound very similar. Like, he doesn't do a lot of voices different from each other, but what he really excels at is giving a very heartfelt performance and making the emotions feel real. And that's more than anything what I value in a performance when I'm listening.
Yeah, anytime you can get someone to actually feel things, as crazy as that sounds, someone that makes me feel things with their performance, that it does actually take talent and just real commitment to be able to actually do that.
For sure. It's harder than people think.
Absolutely.
Because, like, the second, to be able to make it be believable, you basically have to be fully immersed in the character. Like, if any single part of your brain still thinks, I'm acting, you're faking it.
Yeah, and that it is very easy to be pulled out of a performance, both for an actor and as an audience, that if something feels off. And there are plenty of passable performances where it might not be enough to totally take you out of things, but if someone can just drag you into it, that's the difference.
Sure, it's the difference between an average performance and a stellar performance, in my opinion.
Absolutely. Is that something that have you noticed with your own voice acting that just even on your streams, have you been able to notice your own improvement over time?
Oh, for sure. Like, whether it's being able to do some emotions better or being able to reach like different voices I couldn't do before. The thing is, the more you practice, the better you'll get. And cold reading is a really hard skill, like being able to look at something and do it immediately without any practice or research. So just the sheer amount of cold reading practice on stream has definitely improved a lot.
For sure, and that obviously cold reading, like you said, being particularly challenging, that there is a reason that most performances are done after many rehearsals and iterations and people memorizing and knowing the script, whereas I was mentioning the voice acting challenge of even when they're doing the professional recordings, to have them broken out into these different little chunks per page of the visual novel, that doing that then also as a cold read, where you don't necessarily know tonally where is this about to go, because I haven't read this before, I haven't done this scene before, that you have to make educated guesses in your performance, and sometimes it'll shift and be like, okay, well, I'm gonna just adjust to this now, but then sometimes you're like, okay, I hit the nail on the head, I knew where this was going, I had the build up, and that's very satisfying.
I've even heard horror stories from voice actor. I believe one of them was a voice actor from Xenoblade, who like mentioned literally until partway through recording, she didn't even know what project she was doing. Like, they gave minimal names, she knew the character, and she had her individual lines. Like, she had no one else's lines, she didn't know the context of the full story, she didn't know almost anything.
I've heard of
and she just kind of had to run
heavy
with it.
NDAs, and I've heard of folks not knowing what they're auditioning for, that they are given just a script, a thing, told to do a performance in this tone for this age, and that they don't know until they hear back, oh, you've been cast in this major show as this lead character. I don't think I've heard of someone being knee-deep into recording and not knowing the context of their own performance. That has to be very intense.
Like, even for auditions, I kind of feel like it's a shame, because a lot of people that like aren't as experienced or whatever might be able to bring something really good to the table if they were able, like, say it was an anime where the manga is already out. If they could go binge read the whole thing before the audition, I feel like they could do such a better job than having like, here's very generic, minimal context. Context always helps when it's available.
Yeah, and I can understand from the studio perspective. Okay, this
They don't want
cannot
people to leak it.
This cannot get out there. But at the same time, it's a compromise they make, and they probably anticipate, all right, our casting might not be perfect, or the performance might not be, we'll take a 90% performance with a 99% assurance of no leaks, as opposed to a 100% performance and a 50% chance of leaks. That it's a calculation you make.
Because that's the reality. Like, people don't really always have intentions to leak things, but sometimes it can be as simple as someone, they get a little too excited. They might tell one friend they really trust who's so excited for their friend. They tell one other friend they really
and
trust.
Spread, or
and
just,
eventually, everyone knows.
Or, oops, they are streaming and they accidentally left a tab open, or a document name happens to be seen in a folder in a stray email.
It could be totally an accident too, especially if it's like a voice actor that also does streaming or something and they accidentally showed their email. It's like, oh shit.
Or, even just, all right, folders, file names. There's so many different ways that even that crumb of information, if seen by someone who isn't an NDA party, that, all right, you're in deep trouble now.
Yeah. It's kind of easier to prevent that from happening in the first place.
Yeah, unfortunate but understandable. Yeah, and, it makes me wonder, though, are there those alternate timelines of things where somebody else might have had those things? But at the same time, I've heard these really, really sweet stories of people who did not know that they were auditioning for a series that was being remade, rebooted, that they grew up with, and that they got the role, and that it was just, they didn't even know until they got the email, and that they, it's such a special thing for them to kind of not even fall into it, but almost that perhaps even unknowingly that that the series had such an impact on them as an actor that when given the scraps of this character that they intuitively, unintentionally gravitated towards what the actual character was because the series did mean something to them, and they went to that place just not blindly, but because there was the breadcrumbs there, and that they just found it, perhaps accidentally, and then got the role. Are there any dream roles that, fast forward, so even something that was just released this year, that it's been a long enough time, a reasonable span has passed, and that they are doing a remake. What is a dream role that you would want to do? You're not expected to emulate or replicate the performance of the original, but that whether it's because you love the original performance or just you love the character and think you could do your own spin, is there a dream character role for you?
There's two that I would really enjoy, honestly. One of them would be if they ever did another anime of Ace Attorney. I would really want to take my hand at voicing Maya Fey or even Trucy, because in the anime I don't think she was in it yet. So if they make an Apollo Justice anime, doing Trucy would be really fun. Or Dahlia Hawthorne would also be really cool.
I can understand why you would want all three of those roles, and it also makes me wonder: is the Apollo Justice trilogy being released on Switch potentially a litmus test of if this game does well, maybe that would end up getting the anime green lit?
Potentially, because it hasn't been that long since the most recent anime. I think it's only been like less than 5 years or something since Trials finished, so they might want to, experiment with doing a bit more. I feel like if they ever did a voiced version of Ghost Trick as well, I would really want to be Lynn. So that's why getting to voice her on stream was, even though it's not official, it was kind of like a dream come true. Since even when I was a kid, I really wanted to voice Lynn if they ever made like a voiced version of it or an anime. So it's fun.
So for folks who might not be familiar with Ace Attorney, Maya Fey is, I would say she is the leading lady of the original Ace Attorney trilogy, that she is Nick's assistant. She is combination comedic relief, but also just she's the heart of the series.
Yes.
Dahlia Hawthorne is a major player, two-faced antagonist of the third game. And I know of Trucy, but like you said, that in Apollo Justice, which I have not played, so I will rely on you for a proper description of the character.
She's basically your stereotypical Genki girl who's a little bit weird.
There you go. And then the one from Ghost Trick?
She is basically kind of very similar to Maya, to be honest. If you take Maya and age her up to like I don't remember Lynn's actual age. I think she's like 23 or something. It's basically Maya if she was in her 20s, like a little more mature, but still kind of very smart and keen, while also at sometimes being very stupid and just loving and gullible. Kind of this weird combination that all of these things should go
almost
against each
Mia.
other, but somehow they work. Yeah, kind of, but less mature than Mia, more energetic and hyper like Maya.
So somewhere between the two.
Yeah. If they had like a middle sister, it'd probably be her.
Actually, with the knowledge that it's the same writer, the fact that they wrote the middle ground kind of makes sense. That did. I don't know which came first chronologically, Ghost Trick or Ace Attorney.
I think it was Ace Attorney. It was quite a bit older, because it was originally on Game Boy Advance.
That's right, it was. Yeah, because they actually built in the extra case for the DS specifically so they could do different DS mechanics. That there was, you could blow into the microphone to blow away this like fingerprint powder, and that there was a lot more in terms of what you could do with the touch screen. That prior to that, it was really just point and click, but you could already do that on the Game Boy Advance. It was just, with the control pad instead.
Yeah.
But then it makes you wonder, did Mia and Maya have some influence on Ghost Trick that did the writer say, okay, what if I took these characters, found that middle ground, because narratively, I have this need for a character here, and obviously I'm not just going to completely wholesale copy-paste these characters from this other very successful game I've done, but maybe I can take certain elements and get a good combination that is appropriate for this game.
I think she definitely could have easily been inspired by Ace Attorney because her character's a detective, so it would make sense if they took some inspiration from it.
Oh my goodness, we've been at this for over 3.5 hours now, and you already had, like I said, the 4-hour stream for VCAT. So I want to make sure that you're taken care of. This has been so much fun, Pam, and I said it while you were on your break. I've been looking forward to this effectively for months because it took a bit of time and planning to be able to find a day that worked for you with your busy schedule.
A time where I could actually do it, I'm sorry.
But I'm so happy that we were able to get here to today and to have this show, this conversation. This has been such a joy. I feel like we could keep going, but like I said, I want to make sure that you are taken care of and that hopefully, if things line up, I would love to have you back for the 3rd anniversary charity marathon. That is obviously many months away, but in all seriousness, this has been such a joy. So for anyone in chat, be sure to follow if you aren't already. And I do have 2 last questions that I ask all my guests. The first is, do you have any goals for 2023 that we're now halfway through July, so well past the halfway point? Is there anything that you're hoping to do? Obviously, we have the Christmas concert, so I'm going to say you can't use that as the answer. Are there any other things, whether they be projects, new types of streams, or just even something if it's like metrics or merch that you're just hoping to get before the end of the year?
I have a goal. I have a way I think I can make it work, but I need people to test it with. I want to do karaoke collabs with no audio delay.
Oh, actual proper simultaneous karaoke?
Yo. Like, we do it live together. Not a big concert, just like one person with a bunch of songs. 'Cause I don't think I could do that with people coming in and out. But like, I think I could do it with up to 4 people, but every time you add a person, it's more difficult. I have a weird way that will definitely work. It's just a matter of if I can explain it to other people, because it's very convoluted.
Yeah, I'm genuinely curious to see that because, like I said earlier, I do believe generally trying to get multi-part harmony via Discord is a fool's errand. That's not to say it's impossible, but it is a mountain that very few have climbed successfully, and that, you know, if you're gonna go in saying, all right, this is gonna be a scuff karaoke, that's one thing, but it sounds like you have some ideas for how to you have ideas for how to make this work, and that could if you are able to figure that out, Pam, that could be really big, like for VTubing in general, that it's obviously something that I know a lot of people want to do. Karaoke streams are very common, and that collab songs are very common. Karaoke collabs, just technologically, no one has quite figured out how to reliably do that yet. So if you're able to you know, cook up, combine those ingredients, find that strange recipe that no one else has been able to think of yet, that could be a game changer. So I really hope you're able to make it work.
I've seen actually some friends, both of them graduated now.
Oh no.
But I've seen Hiei Rin and Isekai. I've seen them do it once, and they inspired me to figure it out. I know what they did, they said was very difficult. Like they could sing together, but they couldn't talk because the delay they heard with each other was like really wonky for conversation, but for the songs it turned out perfect. I want to try to fix it. If they got that far, I feel like I can take it to the final end, and I can make it work with talking and singing perfectly.
Okay, so they found sort of one end of that spectrum where it can work with singing. We obviously have talking conversations down, but to find that solution where it is viable for both and that it still works, I'm very curious and excited to see what you have in mind, and fingers crossed. I hope that this ends up working because, like I said, it could be you'd be helping out so many others in addition to yourself.
I feel like there have been people who've done it. I don't know them, so I can't ask for their advice. But I'm sure it's possible. Figure it out.
And the last question I ask all my guests is, what does being a VTuber mean to you? And that's not what is the definition of a VTuber, but different people get different things from VTubing. I've had folks say it lets me get in touch with my inner child. It lets me be someone I can't be in real life. I've had others who say it's a mask that I wear and it is a tool in my tool belt as a performer, and I don't have a emotional attachment to this tool, but I think I'm able to be a better performer with it. And you fall into a very interesting place as, I don't know if agency VTuber is quite the right term here, but just as a brand VTuber, as someone who does work and represent a company, that obviously comes with its own implications, but VTubing is still blatantly, obviously something that you just enjoy and love. So, to you, Obake Pam, what does being a VTuber mean to you?
I don't know if I've ever directly said this on stream. I've kind of implied it a few times. This kind of came along at a time where, there were some skills I'd been working on for a long time, and I was starting to feel really down about myself. I was starting to think, I'm never gonna go anywhere. Why did I invest so much time and energy into these things? I will never be anything. This is dumb. I should have been a normal person and, went into science or something. And then this kind of happened, and it just kind of made it feel like all the years I spent practicing things and just hoping one day to have, one thing work out, it kind of felt like everything was worth it. So to me, it's just kind of a culmination of a lot of things I've been working towards coming together, and that was a really good feeling.
I always ask that question at the end of the show because, one, I feel like it helps sort of put a bow on everything, but also, after having a conversation with someone for several hours, while I never know what the answer will be, the answers always make sense. And that just given the combination of experiences, skills, and just your own fun tendencies and the things that you enjoy, that your answer makes sense as well. And that I'm so happy that you found VTubing, that VTubing sort of found you even in its own way. And that, you are not only continuing to thrive as just the ever-present CEO of PlayAsia, but that you are continuing to push yourself in all these different ways with the big concerts and the events, experimenting with different types of voice acting streams, experimenting with it now, as we know, looking into new types of tech for karaoke, that you are going very above and beyond what would be expected of a brand VTuber, and I have to assume that's because you are just having fun, that you're spearheading all these extra things because now you have these tools at your disposal and you can try these things. And it's been such a joy to, watch from afar, and I look forward to watching where you go from here. So, Pam, again, thank you so much for being here this evening.
Thank you.
I do actually have technically one last question, and that's, who would you like us to raid?
Let me see. Hold on.
While she looks around, I will do some last housekeeping. So again, for everyone in chat, if you've been here from before the stream even started, if you came in with one of the raids, if you just found your way here somewhere along the way, thank you so much for tuning in for any amount of time. I really appreciate you all, whether you were here for me or Pam, or if you just were like, what's that funny thing in my recommended panel. Really do appreciate you taking time out. Hopefully you all enjoyed. If you're interested in more shows like this, I do these about once a week. My schedule is inconsistent at best, so I recommend following me here on Twitch or on Twitter. It's just Vtuber Talk, both places. So even if you're not going to follow me, though, do be sure to follow Pam. Her links are obviously here at the bottom of the screen in the channel panels.
No, follow Vtuber Talk as well. Yeah. Follow both. You have to follow both.
Yep. There's a package deal. 2-for-1 special required. And we have our raid target. It is Alpha Beta. So I'm not actually familiar with them. So this is part of why I like asking.
She's such a good singer.
Ooh, okay. Well, so let them know that. Oops, sorry, that was the Discord thing going away. There we go. Let them know that Pam sent you, and do treat them nicely. Do be sure to check out their stream rules. That I do know, Pam, you always actually make a point when you raid folks to actually go through and read out all the stream rules of the raid target. due to how Discord is behaving right now, I can't bring that up. But be sure to read the
No
rules,
worries.
be nice, and give them our regards. Let them know that Pam sent you. So thank you all so much for tuning in. Pam, thank you again. Have a great rest of your evening, and I will see you all next time.